Chapter 161, The Trump Card. Bi Baishan, Hallmaster Guo, aren't you going to help? Chen Zhou and Guo Xiaoshu stood facing each other. Unlike the desperate skirmishes nearby, Guo Xiaoshu no longer flared with rage. She was watching Chen Zhou with a calm, almost resigned expression. A true talent. If the Tang sect had you, it could forge another legend within 10 years. Guo Xiaoshu didn't answer Chen Zhou's question. Instead, she sighed. From the start, Tang sect had taken the wrong path. Yet what could one person do? Who could have predicted that a previously unknown power would rise overnight, with strength rivaling the continent's greatest? Hallmaster Guo, you're wrong. No matter what, Tang sect will never have me, Chen Zhou said, correcting her gently. He seemed untroubled by the fact that a spirit elder like him was facing a genuine titled Douluo. Guo Xiaoshu smiled bitterly. Can you tell me why you hate the Tang sect so much? She asked, genuinely puzzled. Chen Zhou frowned as if surprised she could ask such a thing. I've heard the Tang sect master is away on some important mission and has neglected the sect's affairs for years. The vice sect master is a philanderer. Top to bottom, it's you who runs the Tang sect. As the hall master who manages the whole sect, don't you know why? He pressed. Guo Xiaoshu's expression tightened. A complicated look passed through her eyes. She fell silent for a moment, weighing his words. Then, with a weary gravity, she spoke. Chen Zhou, I know what you say is true. Tang sect has many problems, but they aren't insoluble. These things can't be fixed overnight. Tang sect has a long history and tangled internal ties. One wrong move and everything collapses. As manager, I do what I can to keep the balance and prevent greater disaster. Balance? Chen Zhou sneered, his gaze sharp as a blade. Hallmaster Guo, your balance is simply letting Tang sect rot from the inside. The glory's long gone. The sect is an empty shell, eaten through by termites. Your maintenance only postpones the inevitable. Guo Xiaoshu's face flickered, anger flared and was immediately suppressed. She drew a deep breath to steady her voice. You're young, Chen Zhou. Perhaps you don't understand the sect fully. Yes, Tang sect has problems, but if we find the right opportunity, there's a chance to restore it. Opportunity? Chen Zhou mocked. Your so-called opportunity is a comforting delusion. Tang sect's rot is in its bones. Unless you tear it down and rebuild it, nothing will change. Her brows knitted. She looked torn for a moment. With you in the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, it will be a disaster for the Federation. It seems I'll have to eliminate you, Chen Zhou replied coldly. At that, Guo Xiaoshu's face settled. All the complexity vanished. Pure killing intent rushed up like a blade. Chen Zhou, you're a genius, but geniuses are the easiest to cut down. Today I will end you and remove a great hidden danger for the Tang sect. Chen Zhou smiled. No fear, only unshakable confidence. Is that so? Bi Baishan, kill him. As you command. At some unnoticed instant, Bi Baishan emerged in front of Chen Zhou, moving like wind and shadow. If Chen Zhou had the War King of the Beast race, would he neglect the Machine race's War King? Moonlight fell like frost over the desolate plain. A figure in green stood there, long hair like a waterfall, eyes lit with battle intent, a surge of wild energy restrained within statuesque calm. He held a pure white crescent blade that gleamed like snow. At the blade's guard hung a crescent moon emblem, as though heaven and earth had been forged into the steel. His steps were steady, his aura boundless. Battle energy swelled around him, pressing out into the empty air. He stepped in front of Chen Zhou like a mountain range, an immovable barrier between Guo Xiaoshu and her target. The blade tip tilted slightly. A cold, killing light flashed, as if thousands of soldiers were sheathed within that arc. Under the moon, threads of silver light braided along the crescent, lending it an otherworldly weight. Is this your trump card? Guo Xiaoshu asked, her voice low and wary. Bi Baishan didn't speak. He only raised his eyes. His gaze was a blade that cut straight through one's chest. The crescent trembled, as if a dragon were roaring between heaven and earth. Against the ink dark of his robes, the white blade gleamed like a shard of moonlight. Together, they made him look impossibly powerful. Thousand clouds surging. Without warning, Guo Xiaoshu's battle armor materialized and her spirit power exploded outward. As a titled Douluo, Thousand Clouds Douluo, she seemed to fuse with the sky itself. Spirit power condensed into rolling, roiling clouds that swelled into tornado-like mists and began to devour the plain, surging toward Bibaishan with earth-shattering might. Bibaishan remained composed. He lifted the crescent blade high, the moonlight clinging to the edge. Where Guo's clouds twisted and howled, his blade began to move, slicing through the air with serene precision. Moonlight braided from the crescent, and with each measured sweep of the blade, the swirling mists were split into ribbons of silver, severed and scattered. The collision was immediate and violent. Tornadoes of vapor slammed against a blade that seemed to cleave the world itself. Ribbons of cloud shredded into spray and ash. The ground bucked as shockwaves rippled outward. Debris erupted, flung like confetti across the plain. For a moment, the night became a whirlwind of moonlight and mist, soundless but for the tearing and the roar of unleashed spirit power. Guo Xiaoshu's eyes narrowed. She poured more of her spirit into the storm, widening the cloud's grasp, trying to encircle Bibaishan. He didn't rush in. Instead, he pivoted, and the blade's arc drew a perfect crescent through the air. The cut was calm, inevitable. Where it passed, the air itself felt carved, and the fleeing clouds lost their cohesion and collapsed into motes that scattered like blown dandelion seeds. Chen Zhou watched with that same unruffled expression. He was not the combatant this round. Bibaishan was. But even so, the stance of the man in green made it clear. This was not a simple defense. He stood ready to answer every escalation. Guo Xiaoshu's mouth tightened. Her aura darkened, colder. "So you hide your trump card in a war king," she said. "Not bad, but I won't be stopped by a single blade." Her spirit power coalesced, and the surviving fragments of her thousand clouds began to writhe like living things. The torn remnants reformed into a dozen needle-like vortices, each humming with condensed force, each aimed like a spear. Bibaishan's crescent flashed again. Moonlight and metal met cloud and storm in a clash that sheared the night. The first vortex struck his blade and shattered. The next met his forearm and dispersed. He moved with the rhythm of tide and moon, every motion answering the next attack before it could fully form. The plain trembled beneath the weight of the confrontation. Around them, fighters fell silent, watching the duel between titled Douluo and War King. Even Guo Xiaoshu's longtime authority couldn't mask the fact that she was being forced to escalate against an opponent who had clearly prepared for her. Chen Zhou rested his hands behind his back, eyes fixed, calm as a man watching a storm break. He had given his banner to Bibaishan for a reason. The crescent sang through the air, each strike measured, each defense unyielding. For every surge Guo Xiaoshu unleashed, Bibaishan had a counter. Still, the titled Douluo held greater reserves. Her face was cold as winter, and the pressure she exerted was relentless. They were evenly poised, not yet a decisive end, but an undeniable declaration. Guo Xiaoshu was no longer merely guarding the sect. She intended to finish what she'd started. Bibaishan, the trump card Chen Zhou had kept hidden, answered every escalation with the implacable composure of a king. Lightning fast, inexorable, and beautiful in its lethality, the moonlit duel tore at the night. The outcome would hinge on who could break first, and neither showed signs of yielding. Chapter 162, Thunder Crescent Moon Slash. For a moment, the world itself seemed to tremble. The bright moon hung high and answered some unheard summons. Countless beams of moonlight shattered the sky and poured down. On a distant rooftop, Huo Wuji stood with silver hair flowing, radiating a cold arrogance. He felt the weapon he had given Bibaishan react, and a flush of satisfaction rose in him. "It seems I'm good at teaching. I'll find a worthy successor someday." Unlike the beast race, who must hone their ultimate techniques through endless combat, the machine race had an advantage: inherited ultimate skills. Passed down from ancient times, those legacies could be comprehended by any member of the Mech tribe. Once mastered, they lit a clear path to power. The Thunder tribe's inherited ultimate skill was now being shown in full. "Thunder, Crescent Moon Slash," Bibaishan roared. The borrowed Guandao blazed, as if it drew power from the moon itself, bathing the world in a sacred silver radiance. The slash carried absolute authority and force, cleaving toward the roiling clouds. The roar of impact shook the heavens. The prepared crescent moon slash erupted like a volcanic burst, smashing into the sky with devastating might. A brilliant streak seared across the heavens above the desolate plain. The endless clouds were shredded like paper and vanished. Bai Baishan's swing left no room for restraint. His sole aim was the man standing before him. "This is impossible," Guo Xiaoshu whispered, terror flashing across his face. The power before him could not belong to Bai Baishan. In an instant, his mind raced and focused on one name, Huo Wuji, head of the Jisho Chamber of Commerce. No one had ever seen Huo Wuji fight. His origins were a mystery. This was godlike power. Guo Xiaoshu met Chen Zhou's cold gaze with regret and despair. The Tang sect's fate hung by a thread. Under the moonlight, the white Guandao carried the force of 1,000 thunderbolts, majestic, divine, a heavenly punishment aimed at Guo Xiaoshu's chest. He felt the world press down on him, as if bound by an invisible force. He tried to move, but could not. The blade flashed like lightning and tore through him. Guo Xiaoshu's body split as easily as paper. Blood sprayed across the plain as he fell, eyes wide with unwillingness and regret. He had not expected to die like this, nor to see the Tang sect's demise sealed by his hand. Chen Zhou watched without stirring, as though everything had unfolded exactly as he expected. Bai Baishan withdrew the Guandao. Forcing Huo Wuji's weapon to its limit left him unsteady. He could not help murmuring admiration for his junior. Though they were not of the same generation, Huo Wuji's mastery, channeled through a single Guandao, had unleashed a thunder crescent moon slash beyond ordinary measure. It spoke to how far Huo Wuji had come in mastering the inherited art. "Hall Master Guo," Liang Xiaoyu's voice tore through the chaos. He had been locked in battle and had seen Guo Xiaoshu, his benefactor and the Tang sect's young Hall Master of Speed, fall. Rage and grief welled up in him, turning his eyes bloodshot. The Aurora wheel in his hand spun frantically, its speed pushed to the brink. "Chen Zhou, Bai Baishan, you deserve to die." He surged forward in a streak of light, the Aurora wheel blooming into a blade of brilliant energy as it cut toward Chen Zhou and Bai Baishan, carrying raw, destructive intent. Qing Guang's face darkened. If Liang Xiaoyu struck down one of them now, his own reputation would be ruined. He shed the last of his human disguise. Mechanical light traced his form, and his eyes became spinning, flashing gears. Revealing his armor beast nature, Qing Guang's battle aura condensed into a tornado of war energy that merged with the Qing Feng longsword. The sword shadow struck like a gale, rushing straight at Liang Xiaoyu. Everything happened in a heartbeat. Liang Xiaoyu's fury had driven him to incredible speed, but Qing Guang's strike arrived simultaneously. Qing Ming, shadow follows wind. Qing Guang's sword shadow flickered like a phantom beside Liang Xiaoyu, lightning quick and deadly. The sword light pierced Liang Xiaoyu's throat. Blood erupted as his body froze midair. The light of the Aurora wheel guttered out. His eyes shone with helplessness and despair before he crashed to the plain, raising a heavy plume of dust. With two Hall Masters felled in quick succession, the situation was plain. The Tang sect and the Jisho Chamber of Commerce had torn off all pretense. Open hostility now reigned. Kaiyuer, dean of the outer court of Shrek Academy, was no sentimentalist. Her priority was the school's safety. If they lingered, the rage of the Jisho Chamber could easily turn to slaughter. Lan Muzi and she might be ripped apart on the spot. "Lan Muzi, go!" Kaiyuer shouted, voice ringing under the moon. She inhaled sharply, resolve hardening. The battle had spun completely out of control. Two Hall Masters of the Tang sect had fallen, and the Jisho Chamber's strength far exceeded their worst expectations. Staying would only put Shrek Academy in greater peril. Chapter 163, Spirit Transfer Pagoda. Leng Yaoju at Kaiyuer's cry, Lan Muzi forced himself to his feet through the searing pain. His face was ashen, a smear of blood at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were resolute. They had to withdraw now, or the consequences would be unthinkable. "Go," he barked. The Yangwood blade in his hand gleamed faintly as he sprinted toward Kaiyuer. They dashed across the wasteland, trying desperately to put distance between themselves and the battlefield. But purple armor would not let them go so easily. Trying to leave? Not that simple. Purple armor sneered, launching himself at them like a predator. Violet lightning coalesced around his fists as he struck at their backs with crushing force. Purple lightning, shaking the heavens. His roar rolled over the plain. Purple lightning cascaded like a torrential wave, instantly engulfing Lan Muzi and Kaiyuer. Kaiyuer's face went white. She poured spirit power into a moonlight barrier, the bright moon spirit, raising a luminous shield like moonlight fallen from heaven to block Purple Armor's ultimate strike. But Purple Armor was not like the others, Golden Claw God, Bibaishan, and the rest. As a battle general who had lingered longest in this world, he was intimately familiar with human combat, able to unleash nearly all his power. If not for Kaiyuer's versatile Bright Moon Spirit, which could attack, defend, control, and assist, he would have torn them apart long before. He was content to wait no longer. Purple Armor twisted his lips into a cruel grin and met the moonlight barrier head-on. Violet lightning coiled around his knuckles like raging dragons carrying annihilating force. Boom! When the purple lightning struck the moonlight barrier, the collision detonated in a deafening roar. The air shuddered, dust and energy swirled into a massive vortex. Kaiyuer's barrier buckled under the onslaught, trembling as if it might collapse at any second. Crack! A fissure spidered across the barrier. In moments it widened and then shattered under Purple Armor's fists. Kaiyuer staggered back, blood at the corner of her mouth, shock and disbelief in her eyes. She hadn't expected her defense to break so easily. "Leng Yaoju, aren't you going to act?" she cried. "If you stand by, Yunming will never smile at you again." Her voice was desperate, an appeal wrapped in pride. From above, a familiar figure called to her with a cool amusement. "Kaiyuer, huh, I never thought I'd see you begging." She hovered high over the battlefield like a living sunset. Fiery red hair danced like flame, and a pair of phoenix wings unfurled behind her, each feather burning with brilliant light. Leng Yaoju's skin had the clarity of jade, a faint inner glow about her. She was a striking paradox, cold and aloof, yet incandescent as fire. Her brows arched like distant peaks, heroic at the center. Her eyes were star-dark pools that could freeze or burn depending on their intent. Tall and graceful, her every movement was a masterpiece of poise. Even in the heat of battle, she seemed almost untouchable. Between Leng Yaoju and Kaiyuer lay old rivalry. Both had once vied for Yunming's favor. That history made Leng Yaoju's disdain for Kaiyuer blatant. If not for Kaiyuer's use of Yunming as leverage, Leng Yaoju admitted she would happily have let the Jishou Chamber of Commerce beat her. Purple Armor's eyes flickered with cold light. He halted his assault but did not relax. Violet sparks still crawled across his knuckles as he glared up at Leng Yaoju. "Are you going to be an enemy of the Jishou Chamber of Commerce?" he hissed, his voice low and dangerous. Leng Yaoju's phoenix wings fanned slowly, heat radiating from her like summer. She smiled faintly and shook her head. "The Jishou Chamber of Commerce and I are not enemies. I have no wish to make them my foes." Her gaze swept the fighters below, calculating. She knew the Jishou Chamber's strength was greater than she had imagined. Bibaishan with his crescent blade and the unseen Huo Wuji were names that made her cautious. At the same time, Han Tianyi and Li Mengjie had arrived, and Han Tianyi, the continent's top mental type titled Douluo, gave Leng Yaoju a look both helpless and resigned. The spirit transfer pagoda she represented had come to observe the Jishou Chamber of Commerce as well. If Jishou proved weak, the pagoda could step in and claim advantage. If they were too formidable, the pagoda could sit back and watch the powerful clash while protecting its own interests. A voice cut through the tense air, calm and authoritative. "Since that's so, members of the Spirit Transfer Pagoda, please step aside. This is a grudge between us and Shrek Academy and the Tang sect. It has nothing to do with you." Chen Zhou's tone was steady, carrying undeniable command. He met Leng Yaoju's gaze without flinching. His eyes were as deep and cold as the starry sky. Leng Yaoju arched an eyebrow, a flash of surprise in her expression. She had not expected this young man to remain so composed in the face of someone like her, standing unshaken before the might of the Spirit Transfer Pagoda, personally placing himself on the front line as if a mountain might fall and not disturb him. A fleeting thought crossed her. Young hero. Her gaze softened as it fell on the disheveled Kaiyuer. "The Spirit Transfer Pagoda does not wish to be enemies with the Jishou Chamber of Commerce," she said, voice low and even. "But it's better to settle a grudge than let it fester. Why doesn't young Master Chen just let these two go? The Spirit Transfer Pagoda would be willing to mediate. After all, it's only a trip to Shrek Academy." Chen Zhou's posture did not change. The standoff held for a heartbeat as both sides measured each other, the wasteland between them thick with tension and power. The fate of the retreating pair and the balance between several powerful factions hung in the balance. Author's note, sorry everyone, happy Mother's Day. I drank too much and got mixed up, slept from 10 p.m. to midnight, then got up to write. Thanks to Sanya Yangguang and Rimuru for the support. Tomorrow's extra chapter situation. Popularity extra chapter reached 233,200 plus 1. Average subscription extra chapter reached 4337 plus 1. Reward extra chapter not reached 408,500, so none. Basic 3 chapters still owe 10 chapters. With the extras, that makes 15 chapters in total. I have to be a corporate slave at work, and now I have to be a corporate slave writing novels too. Chapter 164, Zhang Xin's Severed Arm. Hearing this, Han Tianyi finally let out a breath he'd been holding. Fortunately, the Vice Pagoda Master still had her wits about her. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce had already become a major force. Whether the Spirit Transfer Pagoda chose to intervene was no longer the crucial issue. What mattered now was how to profit from the situation. Chen Zhou's lips curved slightly. A cold light flashed in his eyes, but he didn't respond to Leng Yaoju's proposal at once. He slowly raised his hand. At his movement, Bi Baishan and Qing Guang blurred into motion, arriving beside purple armor to confront Leng Yaoju and the Spirit Transfer Pagoda's other members. The wasteland's air grew heavy. Everyone's attention snapped to Chen Zhou, waiting for his answer. Vice Pagoda Master Leng, your proposal sounds reasonable, Chen Zhou said calmly, as if remarking on something trivial. But on what basis does the Spirit Transfer Pagoda claim it has the right to act on behalf of the Jishou Chamber of Commerce? Leng Yaoju's expression shifted. Displeasure flitted across her face. She hadn't expected Chen Zhou to turn her down so bluntly, to openly question the pagoda's authority. As Vice Pagoda Master, she wasn't used to being dismissed. Young Master Chen, she replied softly, cooling. The Spirit Transfer Pagoda is one of the continent's leading forces. Of course, we're qualified to mediate disputes. Her voice carried an edge. Besides, Shrek Academy and the Tang sect are still influential. If the Jishou Chamber of Commerce insists on this path, it risks inviting unnecessary trouble. Trouble? Chen Zhou chuckled, disdain clear in his eyes. Vice Pagoda Master Leng, what you call trouble is only the last convulsions of Shrek Academy and the Tang sect. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce dared to take action against them, and we have full confidence to handle whatever follows without your concern. I still maintain my point. Historical rubbish should be swept into the dustbin. Chen Zhou's words fell like a hammer, striking everyone present. Whether it was Leng Yaoju, Han Tianyi, Kai Yuer, or Lan Muzi, they all felt the undeniable dominion in his tone. The declaration felt like an end-of-era edict, an assertion that the old order would be replaced by the new one led by the Jishou Chamber of Commerce. Leng Yaoju's face went stone cold. Her fiery hair rustled, though there was no wind, and the flames on her phoenix wings flared. Still, she had no desire for an outright confrontation with the Jishou Chamber of Commerce. At that moment, a despairing sword cry cut through the sky. Zhang Xin landed behind the Spirit Transfer Pagoda members, rejoining Kai Yuer. His face was desolate. Seeing Guo Xiaoshu sliced in two and Liang Xiaoyu pinned to the ground by a sword at the throat, a single tear slipped down his cheek as if he could not accept what had happened. Brother Guo, Brother Liang, Zhang Xin's voice was hoarse, choking with grief and regret. His gaze fixed on the two bodies as though refusing to accept the cruel reality. As a pillar of the Tang sect, he had never imagined witnessing the deaths of two comrades, especially in such a brutal way. Zhang Xin's spirit was the lover sword. He was particularly sensitive to loss. Seeing Guo Xiaoshu and Liang Xiaoyu in that state rent his heart. He raised his head slowly, his eyes sweeping the Jishou Chamber of Commerce like blades, burning with fury and murderous intent. The long sword in his hand shivered, its blade glinted coldly. From deep within his voice came a chilling vow. Chen Zhou, Bi Baishan, Qing Guang, Purple Armor, the Tang sect will repay everything you have done today 100-fold. Kai Yuer, always sharp-eyed, spotted something and exclaimed, Sect Master Zhang, your hand. A breeze stirred, and at some point, Golden Claw God had appeared before Purple Armor and the others. The edge of his weapon openly displayed the victory he had just taken from Zhang Xin. Tang sect, only dried bones in a tomb, Golden Claw God sneered. Everyone finally saw it. Zhang Xin's right hand had been severed at the wrist, completely gone. It was clear he had been overwhelmed in his fight with Golden Claw God. Zhang Xin glared at the Jishou Chamber of Commerce members, wishing to engrave every face into his memory. His complexion was ashen, his spirit power nearly spent. He was powerless to take revenge. If not for the Spirit Transfer Pagoda's timely confrontation with the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, he might not have survived at all. Leave now. Zhang Xin didn't believe the pagoda's intervention was purely altruistic. Whispering a quick instruction to Kai Yuer, he mustered his last reserves of spirit power and fled for Shrek City. Kai Yuer and Lan Muzi followed without hesitation. Their escape made the wasteland's tension spike. Leng Yaoju's gaze lingered on their retreating backs before turning back to Chen Zhou, an unreadable mix of calculation and worry in her eyes. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce's strength far exceeded her expectations. If she continued to antagonize them, the Spirit Transfer Pagoda could be dragged into a serious conflict. But to back down now would wound the pagoda's prestige. Young Master Chen, Leng Yaoju said, still measured but with a warning undercurrent, the Spirit Transfer Pagoda would rather not be drawn into this. We hope the Jishou Chamber of Commerce knows when to stop. Shrek Academy and the Tang sect have stood on the continent for many years and have complicated backing. Persisting could bring further trouble. Chen Zhou smiled faintly, disdain flashing in his eyes. Vice Pagoda Master Leng, thank you for the reminder, but the Jishou Chamber of Commerce acted because we could. Shrek Academy and the Tang sect chose to be our enemies. They must accept the consequences. He flicked his gaze toward Han Tianyi and Li Mengjie behind Leng Yaoju. His tone was cool. If the Spirit Transfer Pagoda wants to stay out of this, it would be best to leave now. Otherwise, what happens next may be beyond your control. Leng Yaoju's brow tightened. She understood Chen Zhou wasn't bluffing. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce had shown its strength fully, especially those few generals, each comparable to a super Douluo. Even Zhang Xin, a demigod-level figure among the limit Douluo, had been cut down to one arm by Golden Claw God. Her own power was no greater than Zhang Xin's, perhaps even weaker. If the pagoda stayed, they might truly be pulled into the conflict. Sorry, everyone. Happy Mother's Day. I drank too much and was a little out of it, fell asleep from 10 until midnight before getting up to write. Also, thanks to the generous patrons Sanya Yangguang and Rimuru. Tomorrow's extra chapter situation. Popularity bonus chapter, 200 plus 1 chapter. Average subscription bonus chapter, 4337, plus 1 chapter. Donation bonus chapter, 408 500, not reached, no extra chapter. Basic 3 chapters, plus the 10 chapters still owed, plus the above, still a total of 15 chapters. NND. I'm a corporate slave at work, and now I'm a corporate slave writing novels too. Chapter 165, World Shaking. Han Tianyi, Li Mengjie, let's go. Leng Yaoju's voice was low and decisive, carrying undeniable authority. She knew the situation had already spun beyond the Spirit Transfer Pagoda's control. Staying would only drag the pagoda into deeper trouble. As Vice Tower Master, she had to put the pagoda's interests first. She would not gamble it on the feud between Shrek Academy and the Tang sect. Han Tianyi and Li Mengjie exchanged a glance, solemnity flashing through their eyes. As council members, the pagoda's fate was bound to theirs. Having seen the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's strength today, they knew a meeting would be needed to decide how to respond. After all, the East Sea region provided important funding to the pagoda. Yes, Vice Tower Master. They answered in unison and followed Leng Yaoju, their figures arcing gracefully into the sky and vanishing from the bleak plain. With the Spirit Transfer Pagoda's departure, tension on the plain thickened. Chen Zhou scanned the area, coldness in his gaze. Today's events had torn apart the last vestige of peace between the Jishou Chamber of Commerce and Shrek Academy and the Tang sect. A harder conflict was sure to follow. Young Master, orders? Bi Baishan asked quietly, eyes fixed on Chen Zhou. As one of the chamber's generals, he knew Chen Zhou's decisions would determine the chamber's future. Chen Zhou narrowed his eyes, voice calm and measured as he made his command. Put the chamber on full combat readiness. increase production of machine beast warriors by 10%. From today forward, any force within the East Sea territory connected to the Tang sect is to be treated as our enemy. Notify Shui Shuheng, suspend and monitor all officers and soldiers in the East Sea Legion with Tang sect ties. If they can't manage it themselves, they'll call us. At the same time, release a formal announcement to the world. The Jishou Chamber of Commerce is offering rewards for any intelligence on the Tang sect. I want to see if any fools still believe the Tang sect's glory will keep them standing. His orders rolled across the plain like thunder. Every member of the Jishou Chamber of Commerce listened in stunned reverence. Fanatic loyalty and resolve lit their faces. Bi Baishan, Qing Guang, Purple Armor, and Golden Claw God, the four generals, bowed together and answered, "Understood, young master." Chen Zhou nodded, recalled Chen Gugu, and the five of them returned toward East Sea City. As for Zhao Song, in the wilderness, death was a frequent occurrence. In a single day, the world seemed upended. The Federation had repeatedly delayed its inspection into the East Sea, but none had expected that the region had quietly fallen under the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's control. Technically, the East Sea still belonged to the Federation. Taxes and administration continued for the moment, but everyone sensed the balance had shifted. The Tang sect, which had stood for 10,000 years, found its East Sea arrangements uprooted overnight. Even Vice Sect Master Zhang Xin, who had intervened, had gained no advantage. According to the Chamber's statement, Zhang Xin had lost his right hand. The Tang sect's general manager of Shrek City, Douluo Hall, Master Guo Xiaoshu, Speed Hall Master Liang Xiaoyu, and Strength Hall Master Zhao Song were all dead. The news reverberated across the continent. The Tang sect, once a sacred pillar for countless spirit masters, suddenly teetered. Federation officials and major powers watched closely, their interest piqued by the disturbance. East Sea City became the continent's focal point. The Jishou Chamber's headquarters stood in the city's center, a majestic complex of buildings whose outer walls shone with a faint blue metallic light, as if humming with contained energy. It was both the Chamber's power base and the symbol of the East Sea's new order. Chen Zhou stood on the highest observation deck, looking over the city. To outsiders, the flourishing chamber had a single face, its young master, Chen Zhou. Behind him were figures like the formidable Golden Claw God, said to suppress demigods, and the enigmatic Grand Headmaster Huo Wuji. All were his subordinates. Chen Zhou's gaze was steady and deep, as though the continent's changing tides were within his command. He turned slowly. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward and bowed. "Master!" The man wore a sky-blue fitted suit. His face was composed, his eyes sharp as a hawk's, always ready. "How are things?" Chen Zhou asked, voice casual and cool. "Reporting, Master. Reactions are within expectations. The Tang sect's losses have spread continent-wide. Many forces once aligned with the Tang sect are wavering. Some are even making secret overtures to us. The Federation's leaders maintain a neutral face publicly, but privately, several have begun contacting our people, seeking cooperation. Also, neither Shrek Academy nor the Spirit Transfer Pagoda has made a strong move. They're handling things cautiously. There have been more scouts near the East Sea region recently, though." Chen Zhou nodded, a trace of satisfaction in his eyes. He had arranged this long game carefully. The Tang sect's collapse now seemed inevitable. As for Shrek and the Pagoda, between interests, there were no eternal allies. "Lanjia," he added after a moment, "how has Long Hengshu been recently?" Lanjia blinked, then chuckled. "Director Long, no, Dean Long has been like a man in his second spring, full of energy." "Oh? In what way?" Chen Zhou's surprise was genuine. He had chosen Long Hengshu as the public face for the education reforms mainly because he was Lin Zhimeng's elder brother and had been helpful early on. He had not expected Dean Long to bring such pleasant surprises. Chapter 166, Matters Concluded. As Lanjia finished recounting the events, Chen Zhou finally understood how much his earlier words had driven Long Hengshu. After that day, with Chen Zhou's authorization, Long Hengshu had led the Jishou Chamber of Commerce back to East Sea Academy and forced a transfer of power, effectively sidelining Yu Zhen. He then began lobbying intermediate and advanced academies across the East Sea region, engaging in intense debates. Backed by the chamber, the unflinching Long Hengshu spoke persuasively before academy leaders, fully presenting the educational reforms Chen Zhou had outlined. He proposed not only a new system, but also offered the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's technical support, promising the most advanced spirit tools and cultivation resources. Gradually, the skeptical academy executives began to change their minds. Many started to cooperate. Chen Zhou was pleased. He had seen Long Hongsu as a transitional figure, never expecting him to open the situation so quickly and to the extent of promoting reform across the East Sea. That achievement laid a solid foundation for the Chamber's further expansion in the region. "He's more capable than I imagined," Chen Zhou said calmly, approval briefly flickering in his eyes. Lanja nodded. "Master has an eye for talent. Long Hongsu is indeed capable. My only worry is that his prominence might bring trouble." Chen Zhou let out a short, disdainful chuckle. "Trouble? In the East Sea, who dares cause us trouble? If he has the ability, let him act. Those with ill intent will be dealt with." Lanjia felt his heart tighten as he grasped the implication. He bowed slightly. "Understood. I will arrange for covert protection of Long Hongsu to ensure his safety." Chen Zhou returned his gaze to the distance. The prosperous scene of East Sea City spread below them, bustling streets, shops lining the roads, life in full swing. But beneath the surface, hidden currents of peril churned. "Lanjia, issue an order," Chen Zhou said, his tone sharpening. "Tell Purple Armor to continue the Shadow Project and monitor the movements of all major forces, overt and covert. How has the East Sea, now pretty much in our hands, become so leaky?" Clearly displeased by the intelligence lapses in the region, Chen Zhou's voice froze the air. Lanjia bowed and replied, "Yes, Master. I will personally supervise Purple Armor and ensure the Shadow Project runs smoothly." Chen Zhou nodded, still gazing out to sea, the gateway to the East Sea region and the direction for the Chamber's future expansion. After a moment, he added, "Tell Shui Shuheng to accelerate the reorganization of the East Sea Legion. I don't want to see any Tang sect connections operating here. If necessary, take extreme measures." Lanjia understood the weight of extreme measures. "I will personally inform Shui Shuheng. The East Sea Legion will root out the Tang sect's influence." With that decided, Chen Zhou asked, "Lanjia, what do you think our next step should be?" There was a probing edge to his calm voice. Lanjia considered and answered cautiously, "Master, we must consolidate control over the East Sea and keep weakening the Tang sect. We should also use this momentum to expand the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's influence across the continent and attract more allies. A cornered beast still bites. If we push too hard, the Tang sect, which has been leeching on the Federation for ages, may yet have hidden cards. We should strike continuously at industries the Tang sect claims, while letting ambitious forces test them as our vanguard." Chen Zhou smiled slightly, satisfied. "Good, your thinking aligns with mine, but we need more leverage." Lanjia looked puzzled for a moment. "What do you mean?" Chen Zhou turned to face him, his gaze deep. "Don't worry too much about decaying powers like the Tang sect. The real concern is how Shrek Academy and the Spirit Transfer Pagoda will respond." Lanjia understood immediately. On the continent, and across Douluo Star, 3 names dominated: Shrek Academy, the Spirit Transfer Pagoda, and the Tang sect. Though the Jishou Chamber of Commerce had broken the Tang sect's invincibility in recent events, if Shrek Academy and the Spirit Transfer Pagoda sided with the Tang sect, the situation could change overnight. Forces that were currently restless would fall silent and watch. Unlike the shadowed Tang sect, Shrek and the Pagoda were rising beacons. Shrek the famed First Academy and the Spirit Transfer Pagoda inseparable from the world of spirit masters. Their influence reached every corner of the planet. Even those who disliked the Tang sect dared not offend these 2 powers. Chen Zhou's expression hardened. If Shrek and the Pagoda stayed neutral, fine, he could handle them slowly, and if they were sensible, he might not try to extinguish them completely. But if they interfered or sided with the Tang sect, he would not hesitate to tie them down and crush them as well. With the strategic direction settled, Chen Zhou returned to his cultivation routine. Huo Wuji and Golden Claw God were top-tier commanders. Purple Armor, Bi Baishan, and others were efficient operatives. Chen Zhou did not need to involve himself in every detail. Personal strength remained the foundation of his standing in this world. Time flowed like water, relentless and indifferent. Years slipped by in an instant. Springs and autumns passed, flowers bloomed and fell, clouds rolled over the sky. In this world, only time moved on, silent and unceasing. Chapter 167. The will of the broken planet dominates the power of the Earth vein. Deep under a hidden Jisho Chamber of Commerce factory on the outskirts of Donghai City, dozens of meters below ground, a vast sealed cavern stretched into the black. The only thing that pierced the darkness was a thick, profound halo of yellow energy that saturated the air. The cave was so still it felt as if time itself had stopped. A young man sat there cross-legged. He was handsome, features like a painting, motionless as if dead, merged into the earth vein and sleeping for 1,000 years. Then in the silence, his eyes suddenly opened. His pupils glittered like a boundless starfield, deep and unfathomable, a gaze like an inverted galaxy that seemed to swallow everything. Whoever met it felt dragged toward an abyss, unable to pull away. The world trembled. The yellow aura of profundity grew denser and heavier. From the depths of the earth vein rose an earthy yellow halo that wrapped around the young man like the spirit of the planet itself, awakening and favoring him. Light flowed around him, resonant with the earth. The profound yellow energy coiled and twisted like dragons and snakes, enveloping him. 3 years. Chen Zhou let out a cloudy breath. A year ago, he had sensed the inscription of the Earth Spirit rune nearing completion and had chosen an undisturbed place to go deep underground and enter seclusion. He had expected the inscription to take maybe 3 days at most, not a whole year. Douluo Star, the true heavens are dead, indeed. He could feel the planet's reluctant submission and the resentment buried within it. How could he not understand what had happened? Those two rat-like figures he had noticed earlier must have finished repairing themselves and were now trying to devour the planetary core of Douluo Star, usurping it and seizing control of the planet. But the planetary core would not be so easily consumed. Even when its sentience had been eroded, it still retained self-protection and could resist external corrosion to some degree. While secluded in the Earth vein, Chen Zhou not only completed the inscription of the Earth Spirit rune, he unexpectedly heard the call of the planetary core, a faint, almost imperceptible fluctuation, like a cry for help. At first he ignored it, but as he sank deeper into the vein, his bond to the core strengthened. The Earth Spirit rune, engraved deep in his spirit, resonated with that residual planetary consciousness. The Earth vein had a spirit, and the planet's remaining will could command its power. That was what turned his seclusion into a year-long communion. Chen Zhou did not resist. With the planetary consciousness only partly remaining and clinging to a fragment of its core, it was, in effect, under his control, a burden he had no trouble shouldering. The Earth vein's power was absorbed by the omnipresent Earth Spirit rune in his spirit world, transforming into a profound force that began to heal the shattered soul sleeping at the deepest part of his spirit sea. With the Earth Spirit rune complete and a portion of the planetary will submitting, the earth of his spiritual world rose up. Seas churned, mountains towered from the ground. It felt like a cosmogony in miniature. The Water Spirit rune, which he had inscribed earlier, answered in resonance. Ripples spread across the newly formed sea. The power of earth and water wove together, achieving a remarkable balance. Chen Zhou's spiritual world was quickly becoming a miniature universe, heaven and earth forming anew, all things beginning to take shape and to move toward greater perfection. The 4 elemental foundations, wind, fire, earth, water, were coming together. With earth and water now resonating, they emitted unprecedented power that nourished his spirit world and pushed his strength to a qualitative leap. The Wind Spirit rune, in response, had already progressed more than halfway on its own. Chen Zhou didn't need to force it. The resonance of earth and water guided the Wind rune's formation bit by bit. He could feel the expansion and hardening of his spiritual world happening faster than ever. The change wasn't confined to his inner realm. His body, too, subtly improved. The earth vein's nourishment made his muscles and bones tougher, as if energy flowed through every inch of his skin. The water rune's resonance purified his alchemical energy, making every trace of it vibrantly alive. Chen Zhou rose slowly, feeling the surge of power within. A satisfied smile touched his lips. "Time to go out," he murmured, and his form flickered. The space around him shimmered like a disturbed pool, and then he vanished from the deep cave. Inside the chairman's office at Jishou Chamber of Commerce headquarters, voices erupted. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Long Hengshu's eyes blazed. He stood as if ready to pounce, his rage like a coiled beast. He jabbed a finger at Huo Wuji, whose influence stretched across the Douluo continent, and spat. Do you know how many gray hairs I've gotten trying to promote the new teaching methods all over Donghai? And now you've agreed to an exchange competition with Shrek Academy? Huo Wuji, has a donkey kicked you? Long Hengshu's anger exploded. His shout filled the broad office, rattling the window panes. As one of the main advocates for educational reform in the region, he had poured endless effort into rooting the new pedagogy in middle and advanced academies. Huo Wuji's decision felt like a betrayal. Letting Shrek Academy, with all its old methods and incomparable individual training, flaunt itself in front of children whose values were still forming could make them doubt the new system and undo months of hard-won confidence. Huo Wuji sat behind his desk, unmoved. His face was calm, as if Long Hengshu's fury did not touch him at all. Chapter 168, Spewing Profanities. Half a year ago, Yunming, the top figure on the Douluo continent, had summoned the Jishou Chamber of Commerce for a meeting. Huo Wuji went alone, unflinching, and traveled to Shrek Academy for the banquet and discussions by himself. After the meeting, he left without incident. Even though no fight broke out, everyone afterward treated Huo Wuji as Yunming's equal. The courage and strength to walk freely into the heart of Shrek Academy earned him instant respect, far more than a certain tower master who'd been slapped down when Shrek Academy came knocking. Yet even someone of Huo Wuji's standing could only turn away guiltily under Long Hengshu's volley of insults, refusing to answer. That only made Long Hengshu angrier. He saw Shui Shuheng sitting on a sofa nearby, quietly smiling to himself. Like a predator locking on its prey, Long Hengshu strode over, grabbed Shui Shuheng by the collar, and roared, "Shui Shuheng, what are you laughing at? Do you agree with Huo Wuji? Do you think the educational reforms we fought so hard for should be easily dismantled by the people from Shrek Academy?" Startled, Shui Shuheng almost had a heart attack. He hurriedly waved his hands. "Dean Long, calm down. I don't. I just think President Huo must have his reasons. Let's not jump to conclusions. Hear him out first." Long Hengshu snorted and released Shui Shuheng, but his fury didn't ebb. Eyes narrowing, he glared at the old man like he'd been insulted and launched into a tirade. "I didn't say you, did I? Your damned East Sea Legion is full of holes. Tang Sect and Shrek have infiltrated you to the core. You rushed to my doorstep to steal my talents. What do you need talents for? Mecha's built for you, manpower fed to you. You're not fighting wars or rebelling, so what do you need them for? Do you think implementing a new education system is easy? Every one of you comes to cause trouble for me." Long Hengshu's anger swept through the office like a gale. Shui Shuheng fell silent, rubbing his nose, retreating to the side so as not to provoke him further. Huo Wuji stayed composed, as though Long Hengshu's rage didn't touch him at all. The air in the room went cold and oppressive. Long Hengshu's chest heaved. He was still furious. One is only an acting legion commander, the other the general master of the Jishou Chamber of Commerce. Others may fear you, but I don't. If you don't give me a satisfactory answer today, I'm not leaving. No one will have a good time. His threat tightened the atmosphere further. Shui Shuheng and Huo Wuji exchanged a helpless glance. They both knew that when Long Hengshu snapped, no one could rein him in, and his frustration was not baseless. He had poured enormous effort into educational reform across the East Sea region, and Huo Wuji's decision felt like cold water poured over all that work. The East Sea region had been built into a near fortress by the Jishou Chamber of Commerce and the East Sea Legion. Its economy flourished, and its people were unified. With the three potions, awakening, enlightenment, and sublimation, that could boost innate spirit power, the region's rising elites had largely rallied to their side. But because the Tang sect had been targeting them openly and covertly, the Jishou Chamber couldn't hold on to individuals and factions tied to the Tang sect. That produced a shortage of mid-level talent. The East Sea Legion's situation was worse. Despite Shui Shuheng's decades of planning, managing the Mecha and Information departments, Zhu Ming, the Legion commander, turned out to be the biggest traitor. Under Chaityan's urging, Shui had been forced into a drastic cleansing. Many high-ranking officers were dismissed, and core members were exposed for colluding with groups like the Tang Sect and Shrek Academy. The result was both the civilian bureaucracy and the Legion suffering severe personnel losses. If not for the Thunder Tribe's mecha warriors, whose intelligence and reliability carried a heavy burden in the hardest times, the cleanup might have had catastrophic effects. The Thunder Tribe, it must be said, was truly versatile beyond combat. On the bright side, the departure of middle management insiders had opened the door for Chen Zhou's policy, set before he left. Ordinary people should be able to rise, and low spirit quality should not bar someone from management. That gave common folk hope. They joined enthusiastically in building the Jisho Chamber and the Legion, devouring every scrap of knowledge from the new education system. So Long Hengshu's fury was understandable. The reforms had shown promise, but only briefly. They weren't yet stable. Huowuji sighed softly and finally spoke. Dean Long, please calm down. I understand your anger, but things aren't as bad as you think. Calm down. How can I calm down? Long Hengshu sneered, dripping contempt. Huowuji, am I a fool? What is Shrek Academy? Even their students, just from running drills, have strength beyond ours at the same rank. Their combat experience and resources far outstrip ours. Our new education system has only been running 6 months. Our students can't match them. Letting Shrek Academy come for exchange matches is just inviting them to slap us in the face. Huowuji remained unruffled. He rose and stepped in front of Long Hengsu, his gaze steady and deep. Dean Long, I understand your concerns, but the situation is more nuanced. His voice was low and resonant, carrying an undeniable authority. Shrek Academy is powerful, but our new education system has its advantages. This exchange isn't merely about displaying strength. It's about proving to the whole continent that our educational philosophy works, that it can cultivate true powerhouses. Long Hengshu's brow tightened at that. He snorted. Don't give me grand visions, Huowuji. Every student at Shrek Academy is a prodigy. Their experience and resources exceed ours. Our students have only half a year of training. How can they possibly compete? Isn't this just asking to be humiliated? Huowuji smiled faintly, confidence flashing in his eyes. Dean Long, you'll soon see whether I'm painting a grand picture. He paused, then added quietly, by the way, have you forgotten the foundation of our Jisho Chamber of Commerce? Chapter 169. Shrek Academy is nothing but a display for sale. Long Hengshu frowned as he looked at the composed Huowuji, somewhat believing him but still muttering, what the hell does fundamentally mean? Wait! Huowuji's words hung in the air, and for a moment Long Hengshu's burning anger cleared. His eyes widened with sudden realization. Is it the young master who has returned? Not only Long Hengshu, but Shui Shuheng stood up at once, excitement clear on his face. After half a year of working with the Jisho Chamber of Commerce, this elder had come to trust its future, and that made him privy to some secrets. Like Long Hengshu, he didn't know Chen Zhou's true identity, but everyone understood Chen Zhou was far more than a mere heir. From Huowuji, who displayed strength nearly on par with a quasi-god, down to the black-armored warriors comparable to spirit kings, loyalty to Chen Zhou had always been open and unwavering. Long Hengshu and Shui Shuheng exchanged glances, both filled with eager anticipation. They understood what Chen Zhou's return meant, not just the heir's comeback, but the reappearance of a decisive figure who could change everything. The young master has returned? Long Hengshu's voice trembled, disbelief and hope warring on his face. Huowuji nodded, allowing himself a rare smile. Yes, the young master has come out of seclusion. His strength has greatly increased. This exchange competition with Shrek Academy is a plan personally arranged by him. Long Hengshu's anger vanished instantly, replaced by an intense exhilaration. I always said we should let those deluded scoundrels from Shrek Academy see which side history really favors. Huowuji and Shui Shuheng couldn't help but smile at Long Hengshu's sudden change. He might have a fiery temper, but his loyalty to the new education system was unquestionable. Hearing Chen Zhou had returned, his faith and expectation surged. Now that the young master has emerged, we don't need to worry about the exchange, Shui Shuheng said, relief evident in his voice. As acting Legion commander of the East Sea Legion, he carried more pressure than most. Formally, he still served under the Sun Moon Federation Council, and unlike Long Hengsu's sidelining, Shui Shuheng had actually imprisoned the East Sea Legion's commander, Zhu Ming. That put enormous scrutiny on him. Any sign of weakness from the Jishou Chamber of Commerce would prompt the council's predatory factions to pounce. He wasn't afraid, but avoiding unnecessary trouble was wise. Huo Wuji watched their emotions shift and felt his own tension ease. Chen Zhou's return wasn't just reassurance for Long Hengsu and Shui Shuheng. It was a morale boost for the entire Jishou Chamber of Commerce and the East Sea region. With Chen Zhou present, they could confidently face top younger forces like Shrek Academy and the Spirit Transfer Pagoda. The East Sea region had only enjoyed real development for a few centuries. No academy, if honest, could claim to rival the students bred by Shrek Academy. Their talent and resources were superior. But East Sea Academy was different. With names like Chen Zhou, Tang Wulin, Gu Yue, Shi Xie, Xiaoyan, Wang Jingxi, and Zhang Yangzi, despite Wang Jingxi and Zhang Yangzi leaving, and Tang Wulin, Gu Yue, and Shi Xie being taken away, Chen Zhou's existence bolstered Long Hengshu's confidence. In Long Hengshu's eyes, none of the former Zero class could match Chen Zhou. How could those who hadn't even subdued Chen Zhou's soul spirit win his favor? His eyes bright with conviction, Long Hengshu straightened. He could already picture East Sea Academy shining in the exchange. Where is the young master now? When can we see him? Huo Wuji gestured for patience with a smile. The young master has just emerged from seclusion and is still adjusting. He told me not to rush everyone. He already has a detailed plan for the exchange. All we need to do is follow his orders. Long Hengshu nodded. Impatient as he was, he knew Chen Zhou's temperament. Steady, never plunging into a fight unprepared. If there was a plan, Long Hengshu would cooperate fully. Shui Shuheng added from the side, "With the young master back, our pressure is much less, but we still must watch Shrek Academy closely. Their foundation and strength cannot be underestimated." Huo Wuji scoffed, sounding unconcerned. Shrek Academy is nothing but a display for sale, like chickens and dogs in a market. Long Hengshu rolled his eyes at the boast, exchanged a look with Shui Shuheng, and left the room. "I have work to do. The new textbook compilation still needs revising." "Me too. There are personnel changes to sort in our legion." Watching the two depart, Huo Wuji shook his head with a rueful smile. Why was it that when he told the truth, no one seemed to take him seriously? Late that night in East Sea City, a gentle sea breeze carried the salt and damp tang of the ocean through streets and alleys. Neon lights painted the cityscape, buildings and glass facades reflecting color and motion as traffic hummed through never-ending flows. The avenues lived and laughed. Prosperity glittered like a dream. But a few miles out, away from the pulse of the city, a quiet hill rose from the suburbs. There, under a wide, unbroken sky, grass rippled like green waves. Chen Zhou lay on his back on the cool grass. The night sky stretched above him. The breeze smelled of trees and earth, clearing his thoughts. He watched the stars, countless points of light scattered across black velvet, the Milky Way like a silver ribbon bridging the heavens. A humble smallness rose in him, emerging with the universe that washed away worldly cares. How vast the heavens and earth are! How brief and small a human life is, he murmured. He closed his eyes and settled into meditation, tuning himself to the wind and the pulse of the world. In that silence, he felt in tune with heaven and earth, as if conversing with the stars. The seaborne wind and the thrum of the land flowed into him. Within his mind, a great force surged, able to shape worlds inside the ethereal realm. Wind, fire, earth, water, the five elements braided together, clear and turbid separating, yin and yang interweaving, and in that interplay his spirit found a calm, powerful clarity. Chapter 170, I Lack Nothing. The massive Xuanhuang stone hovered inside his mind, drifting up and down. It carried a fragment of the world's core authority, control over the planet's ley lines and the capacity to gather spirit energy. When Chen Zhou opened his eyes, the illusory world evaporated like smoke. The Xuanhuang stone rested in his palm, and above it floated the original energy amethyst, glowing with the pure energy it had accumulated over 3 years. That accumulation was already enormous. To achieve it, Chen Zhou had taken Chen Gugu to the primary spirit ascension platform several times to recharge, imprinting anchor points and nearly getting caught by the Spirit Transfer Pagoda's staff. Even then, their activity had shaken the pagoda, so much so that the primary spirit ascension platform had gone haywire and the number of spirit beasts there had plummeted. The outcome had been worth the risk. The original energy amethyst had been heavily replenished, and Chen Zhou had nearly seized control of more than half the primary spirit ascension platform. From now on, however, he could no longer enter that platform to restock. His next target would have to be the intermediate spirit ascension platform. Heaven and Earth Refinement. Chen Zhou murmured the words. With two major mental runes already engraved in his mental core, the Heaven and Earth Refining meditation method had cleared its toughest barrier. The remaining runes were only a matter of time. The Earth and Water runes would continually etch other runes into his mental world on his behalf. Finally, Chen Zhou could use the pure energy stored in the original energy amethyst to attempt the pinnacle of the Alchemist's refinement series, Heaven and Earth Refinement. Purple motes of light scattered like stars. His mental force surged to a peak. His consciousness seemed to blend with heaven and earth, feeling every current of energy and every ripple of law. The amethyst above his head pulsed with pure, potent energy as if answering his summons. Heaven and earth refine, return all things to one. His voice was low and commanding. He raised his hands slowly, palms up, as though holding the sky itself. The energy within the amethyst erupted into streams of purple light that streamed toward his palms. Those streams condensed into an intricate alchemical array, the pattern shimmering with purple radiance and infinite mystery. Chen Zhou's gaze locked on the array. A streak of light flashed in his eyes. The Xuanhuang stone in his palm was drawn into the formation. Inside his mental world, mountains rose and the yellow-brown soil trembled. Oceans surged and waves reached the heavens. His mental domain seemed to turn into a colossal crucible, the power of heaven and earth roaring, ready to remelt everything. As a shard of the world's core authority, the Xuanhuang stone, a remnant of the world's consciousness, naturally recognized Chen Zhou. It owed him, in a sense, and thus held an unusual affinity for him. If Chen Zhou had been willing for his body to be contaminated, he could have merged with the stone and shouldered nearly half of the world's destiny, to become a true son of destiny. He refused that path, however. He had other ideas. In a previous life, while wandering among dimensions, he had glimpsed a strange birth. A supreme god, pitying the universe's barrenness, sacrificed himself and drew upon a planet's core to create a being born of that planet's essence, a star god. The Xuanhuang stone now in his hand contained an authority similar to a world core. It was not hyperbole to call it a piece of the planet's essence. If that was true, then perhaps he could fashion a star god of his own. Chen Zhou poured his mental force into the Xuanhuang stone. The alchemical array, steady as primordial law, probed the stone's interior. His mental power flooded it like a tide. The array's light intensified until it could have lit the entire night sky. The stone trembled in his palm, answering the call. As his focus deepened, Chen Zhou perceived the stone's inner architecture. An immense, boundless heaven and earth, endless ley line energy condensed like a miniature planetary core. As I thought, Chen Zhou's heart stirred, a sliver of excitement crossing his features. The stone's inner structure matched the planetary cores he had seen in other dimensions. Although the Xuanhuang stone was only a fragment of Douluo Star's core, the laws and power within were enough to support the gestation of a star god. Then I will make a star god that belongs to me. His voice was resolute. He closed his hands. The alchemical array reached its apex. Cascades of purple light enveloped the Xuanhuang stone. He couldn't replicate the supreme god's self-sacrifice. He could not pour himself into the planet's essence to create a true cosmic deity. But he was an alchemist of extraordinary skill, and the original energy amethyst was no ordinary storage crystal. It was a primal creation from the machine beast world, embodying the authority of origin and creation. An alchemist armed with the authority of creation might not produce a canonical cosmic star god, but crafting a star god-like entity was within his reach. For Chen Zhou, a forbidden alchemist who had stood at the forefront of his field in a former life, This task posed no impossible hurdles. The alchemical array rearranged the stone's inner chaos. Chaotic ley line energy, under the array's guidance, condensed toward a core, as if a planet were forming. Chen Zhou's mental force became an invisible tether, binding his mind to that nascent core. Deep in his mental sea, the shattered soul that had long slumbered began to stir and open its eyes. Its crimson gold gaze exuded an oppressive might. The original energy amethyst hesitated briefly, then poured forth the vast store of pure energy it had painstakingly accumulated over 3 years. The ley line power amplified and sustained by the primary spirit ascension platform. That energy allowed the fragmented soul to release a fraction of the power that rightfully belonged to Chen Zhou. Under the infusion, the fractured soul began to mend as if time itself were reversing the damage. Cracks closed, splintered pieces knit together. What had been broken became whole again. Chen Zhou's soul felt reborn. The healed soul no longer bore the ragged fissures of the past. It gleamed with a completeness and power he had never felt before. His eyes hardened, cool and vast as the starry void. In that instant, his expression carried an unyielding, all-encompassing indifference, the calm of someone who stood above scarcity. I lack nothing. Chapter 171. Planetary Spirituality. Chen Zhou had once been a supreme tutor of the Supreme Hall, one of the architects of the supreme meditation method for alchemists, the foremost figure in the alchemy transmutation lineage, the pinnacle of forbidden alchemy. He was an unprecedentedly dangerous and wanted man in the hall and ranked among the top 5 solo combatants in the boundless universe. Now, beneath the sea of spirit, he synchronized with his soul and slowly extended his hand. The patterns of the Grand Alchemy Array flared wildly. With each engraved sigil, the array's light grew brighter, as if it could pierce the night sky. At its center, the profound yellow stone trembled, responding to Chen Zhou's summons. Life stirred within it, like a star god being born. Under the array's influence, the stone softened into a spherical orb, a miniature planet suspended in his palm. Its surface shimmered with deep yellow light. Inside flowed endless telluric energy, a nascent divinity gestating. Chen Zhou stared at the tiny planet with an unwavering gaze. At his thought, the Grand Alchemy Array's beams converged instantly. Energy rushed toward the orb, condensing on its outer shell and knitting into chains of order that siphoned the telluric energy being guided up from beneath the hill. In less than 10 seconds, it was done. Chen Zhou's face drained of color. Exhaustion seeped back from the depths of his soul. His reddish-gold soul down in the sea of spirit, once whole and unified, began to fracture again. Cracks spidered across its surface and fragments spun away like stardust. He closed his eyes and sank into slumber. He sighed slowly. The soul's injuries were deepening, but everything had meaning within his plan. Nothing had deviated. Night lay across the sea, an inky black canvas studded with stars like a spilled Milky Way. Low hills rose between sea and sky like the spine of the earth, full of ancient mystery. On one of those hills, a circular yellow-brown stone stood quietly, unremarkable at first glance yet brimming with vitality, as if it had gathered the essence of heaven and earth. Carved lines ran across its surface like coiled dragons, undulating rivers, or mountain ranges. Each line seemed to tell an old legend, cut by the hands of time. Look closer, and one saw threads of divine order woven through the patterns, here one moment, gone the next, maintaining a hidden power that guarded the land's calm. Vitality pulsed within the stone. Profound yellow chi swirled like mist, condensing and dispersing as if nurturing something great. Streaks of telluric energy rose from beneath the hill like dragons ascending or phoenixes dancing, intertwining with the chi and forming a majestic tableau. The stone no longer looked like an ordinary rock. It had the weight of the planet's will, carrying the Earth's depth and the world's spirit. It stood there, silent, as if waiting. Central Continent, Shrek City, Shrek Academy, Sea God Island, Golden Ancient Tree. The Golden Ancient Tree, the Academy's emblem, looked lush from the outside, but was rotten within. Its core had long since decayed. A faint light flickered in its heart, barely clinging to life and steadily weakening. As the foundation of Shrek Academy, the tree supplied abundant spiritual energy that made cultivation and meditation tremendously more effective. If it failed, the Academy's defenses would tremble. Inside the Sea God Pavilion, Yun Ming stood before the tree, brow furrowed and worry in his eyes. As the current pavilion master, he knew the tree's importance better than anyone. He could feel the golden ancient tree's vitality draining away, and not naturally. Some external force was eating at its core. Though this had been happening for some time, today the hemorrhage accelerated to an alarming rate. 6 months earlier, he had met Huo Wuji, who visited Shrek Academy alone. Their conversation had been calm on the surface but charged underneath. Huo Wuji had spoken with composed disdain, as if Shrek Academy were an old power destined to be swept aside. Yunming had not paid it much heed then. The academy's roots ran deep. Now, faced with the tree's decline, anxiety tightened his chest. Suddenly the tree shivered as if sensing something, and a surge of emotion, joy, delight rose from its core. Yunming felt it immediately. Could it be? The golden ancient tree was about to revive. Elation flooded him. If the tree recovered naturally, Shrek Academy would be reborn in glory. He turned to hurry and tell the other pavilion members the good news. But as Yunming left, a shaft of spiritual light shot from the tree's core, carrying vitality and spiritual essence eastward. At the heart of the world, where integration was at a critical point, Ayin frowned as if she had detected the theft. She bit her silver teeth and called out to Tang Hao, who was also tending the world's core nearby. "Brother Hao, hurry and help me. Ayin, what's wrong?" Tang Hao opened his eyes at once. The energy in Ayin's body that had been swelling steadily was now collapsing and being drained at a terrifying rate. He broke off his own integration and rushed to her side. "The golden ancient tree's last bit of spirituality has left its vessel," Ayin said, urgency in her voice as her face paled. "Now the world's core is forcibly drawing my energy to keep itself going." Tang Hao's expression changed drastically as he understood the gravity of the situation. Chapter 172, The Birth of a Star God. How could this be? How could this be? But we did everything Little San told us to. Tang Hao was utterly bewildered. Yin's body was sprouting withered, tree-like patterns as if she, who had merged with the world core, were being assimilated by it. A decaying aura spread from her, and a cold panic rose in Tang Hao's chest. He gripped Yin's hand with all his strength, trying to channel his own power to stop the drain. "Yin, hold on. I won't let anything happen to you." His voice trembled, eyes burning with determination. He mobilized his divine force, forcing it into Yin's body to help her resist the World Core's pull. But the World Core's power far exceeded his expectations. The moment his divine force entered her, it was swallowed by the Core's overwhelming suction, like a clay ox thrown into a boundless sea, utterly useless. Tang Hao's face tightened. He realized he could not stop this with his power alone. "Brother Hao, don't waste your strength," Yin said weakly. Her body had already begun to take on the shape of a tree, slender fingers branching into twigs and leaves, the long hair at her waist withering into vines. Despair flashed in Tang Hao's eyes. He hugged her tightly, as if his arms could keep her from being claimed by the world. "There must be a way. There must be a way." His voice took on the edge of madness. Thoughts raced through his mind, but no solution presented itself. Yin's body stiffened. Bark-like patterns crept across her skin as she merged further with the golden ancient tree. With great effort, she whispered, "Brother Hao, don't worry about me. You must become the lord of the world, protect Little San's rear, and wait for his return. He must have a way." "No," Tang Hao snapped. Acting on a sudden impulse, he seized the world authority despite its outwardly imposing but inwardly hollow nature. A decisive look crossed his face. He threw himself into the authority, fully activating it. The dim sigil flared under his will, erupting into a brilliant radiance, like a star igniting in the dark. Tang Hao poured his divine force into the authority, trying to use it to reverse Yin's assimilation. "Yin, I won't let you go." Guided by the authority, his divine force turned into streams of golden light that surged toward Yin. They suppressed her transformation briefly, but the exertion showed on Tang Hao's face. He couldn't hold it. Not long ago, the two of them had celebrated having ground away the world's original will and were about to complete Tang San's plan to make themselves the true masters of this world, turning all of Douluo Star into their backyard. Now they were fighting to stop the World Core from merging with them. Devoid of the original spark of intelligence, the World Core had become a cage, an energy converter that continuously devoured free power for Douluo Star from beyond the universe. Beads of cold sweat rolled down Tang Hao's brow. His divine force was being consumed wildly, each second burning like life itself. He dared not relent. If he faltered even for an instant, Yin would be re-erosioned by the world core and fully assimilated. That original consciousness would be lost, reduced to a tool of the world. Little San, when will you return? Far across the sky, in the western lands, a streak of shimmering spiritual light rose like a last dawn star and flowed toward a majestic hill on the east coast. Atop the hill sat a round stone steeped in the world's spiritual energy, nurturing a life whose breadth seemed almost limitless. This life, long awaiting its moment, was the soul shaped by that imposing spirituality. The earth itself pulsed, forces hidden deep within the core rose like tides, collectively welcoming the arrival of a sovereign. On the round stone, the chains of order fashioned by time gradually dimmed and melted, becoming trickling streams that flowed slowly to help the nascent sovereign disentangle the temporarily unruly laws and authority. The dark yellow outer shell softened and turned into a precious golden liquid, gently pouring into an embryo within. Above, the original energy amethyst hung, dripping a pale purple light like a thread of purity and hope, the glow of a tiny galaxy, an interplay of light and shadow in a dream. The War King Token surged at the forefront, its ripples spreading as if to bestow a formidable form upon the newborn, moving heaven and earth. A dark yellow luster gathered, and a mechanical body coalesced. A frame of gears and rings, a pair of eyes that shimmered with the solemn majesty of machinery and authority, encompassing everything like the claim of the earth itself. For a moment time seemed to halt. All creation fell silent as this star god, born at the dawn of the universe, quietly took its first step into history. The majestic aura did not last. The dense earth energy slowly receded, and the vast body condensed into a thread of light. Before Chen Zhou could study it closely, a small figure leaped into his arms like a young bird returning to its nest, releasing an eager, affectionate mental force. Awoo! Chen Zhou, exhausted, bent his head and at last saw the child in his arms, a little girl carved like pink jade, looking up with wide, curious eyes full of anticipation. Her face was like a dewdrop in morning light, clear and pure, exuding innocent vivacity. Those large, watery eyes seemed to hold a wisdom beyond their years, while still keeping the unique naivety of childhood. Is this a star god? Warmth surged through Chen Zhou's heart. Though he knew this being was a soul he'd shaped, she felt alive in a way no artifact could be. The fusion of the original energy amethyst and the War King Token had naturally established an invisible bond between this life and him. It was more than soul resonance, it felt like bloodline, a sense of belonging. The little girl made another childish sound and clutched Chen Zhou's clothes as if afraid he might leave. The corner of his mouth lifted. He reached out and gently stroked her hair with tenderness and care, as if even a careless movement might harm her fragile form. And yet, fragile though she seemed, this little girl was a genuine star god, albeit with incomplete authority, a legendary life born from the world core itself. Author's note: thanks to Lord Rimuru and Lord San Yangguang for their rewards. 8 chapters finished. Tomorrow's bonus chapter situation. Popularity bonus, 267-210, adds 1 chapter. Average subscription bonus, 4238, adds 1 chapter. Reward bonus, 1096-500, adds 2 chapters. Base is 3 chapters. I still owe 7 chapters, plus these bonus chapters. 14 chapters total. Damn it, why are there still so many? Chapter 173. Swan Li. It seems you don't have a name yet. Chen Zhou murmured, thoughtful. Though he had created this life form with his own hands, her existence had exceeded his expectations. He had imagined the birth of a star god would be long and arduous, perhaps even dangerous. Instead, this little girl had appeared before him as naturally as if she were a product of the world itself. Chen Zhou stroked her hair, feeling the deep pulse of the earth veins within her. Though she looked like a child, her existence was intimately tied to the earth veins of the entire Douluo Star. Every breath seemed to tug at the planet's pulse. Every motion contained boundless power. Since you're so closely tied to the earth, I'll call you Xuan Li. Xuan for the Xuanhuang stone, symbolizing the earth's depth and power. Li for purity and beauty, reflecting her innocence and flawlessness. The star god's soul was nascent, but her ability to learn was astonishing. She quickly understood the name and repeated it in a soft, childlike voice. Xuanli, Awu. Chen Zhou smiled, a quiet satisfaction welling up inside him. He lifted Xuanli into his arms and felt the immense power contained in her small body. Though she appeared to be an ordinary little girl, her potential was limitless. As a star god, she not only carried an authority bound to the earth, but also a growth curve far beyond ordinary beings, rapid learning, unparalleled affinity with nature. If she could reclaim the portion of world authority that originated from her and fill in future gaps, her prospects would be immeasurable. Xuanli, from today on, you are my disciple, Chen Zhou said softly, a trace of tenderness in his voice. I will train you to be the strongest alchemist. He left the last word unspoken, but Xuanli seemed to understand. Her small hand gripped his clothes, and a contented smile brightened her face. Night deepened, and the sea breeze grew cool. Chen Zhou carried Xuanli down the hillside toward East Sea City. The child nestled in his arms, eyes wide with curiosity at a world new and filled with wonders. Chen Zhou did not head straight for the Jishou Chamber of Commerce headquarters. He wanted first to teach Xuanli basic cognition and behavior. He also knew that after a year away, the chamber had not fallen into chaos, which meant the situation did not demand his immediate micromanagement. Still, it was good to see things for himself. Back at the house, Lan Jia had been waiting anxiously. He dropped to one knee, adoration shining in his eyes. Master, you're finally back. Chen Zhou inclined his head and motioned for him to rise. He let his gaze rest on Lan Jia for a moment before asking, how has the Jishou Chamber of Commerce fared during my absence? Lan Jia looked up, then met Xuanli's gaze in Chen Zhou's arms. For an instant, his expression changed, as though endless earth and rolling mountains rose before him, pressing down with oppressive weight. Chen Zhou noticed but wasn't surprised. Although most of Xuanli's power remained restrained by the chains of order as the master of power, especially one whose form came from the War King Token and whose life sprang from the original energy Amethyst, her soul's presence far exceeded what Lan Jia could comfortably bear. Chen Zhou gently patted Xuanli's head and murmured, Xuanli, don't frighten people. The child blinked, and as if understanding, withdrew the invisible pressure she had been unconsciously releasing. The relief was immediate on Lan Jia's face, and his reverence for Chen Zhou deepened. He could tell the little girl in Chen Zhou's arms shared their origin. That meant the machine beast warriors, long shackled, might one day step into this domain themselves. Lan Jia bowed his head respectfully. Master, the Jishou Chamber of Commerce has developed very smoothly while you were away. We expanded our influence across the East Sea region according to your plans and strengthened our cooperation with the East Sea Legion. Dean Long Hengshu introduced a new education program at East Sea Academy and has been cultivating many excellent talents. East Sea is thriving. Chen Zhou nodded and asked, what about the Spirit Transfer Pagoda and other forces? Have they made contact? 3 years earlier, after Chen Zhou had dismantled the Tang sect's arrangements in the East Sea, many groups, openly and covertly, sought cooperation. Their secrecy didn't fit Chen Zhou's plans, so he ignored them. In the following 2 years, he focused on cultivation and research and paid them even less attention. Still, it seemed someone from the Spirit Transfer Pagoda had indeed approached Grandmaster Huo Wuji. At that time, Huo Wuji had been busy discussing mass production of alchemical potions with Huo Tianshu and had shown little interest. In the last year, he had gone into seclusion entirely. Lan Jia considered a moment before answering. Master, the Spirit Transfer Pagoda has contacted us several times, but Grandmaster Huo Wuji declined politely, saying you were in seclusion. They haven't given up. The most recent visit was 3 months ago. A high-ranking official from the pagoda personally came to request cooperation. Following your instructions, Grandmaster Huo Wuji has given no definitive answer, saying only that a decision will be made after you leave seclusion. Chen Zhou's expression grew pensive. He knew Grandmaster Huo Wuji would not reveal his secrets. The excuse was meant to shield the behind-the-scenes person of the Jishou Chamber. The Spirit Transfer Pagoda was one of the continent's great powers. Its foundations and influence were not to be underestimated. That they actively sought cooperation meant they recognized the chamber's potential, but Chen Zhou doubted their intentions were purely benign. The Spirit Transfer Pagoda's motives are probably more complicated than simple cooperation, Chen Zhou said lowly, a hint of cold in his voice. Lanja agreed. Master is wise. Grandmaster Huo Wuji also thinks their intentions aren't simple. The potion that enhances innate spirit power can't stay a secret forever. Any force that learns of it will flock to it, and the Spirit Transfer Pagoda is no exception. They have the veneer of cooperation, but they're likely trying to probe the Jisho Chamber's true capabilities and may covet our core technologies. Chen Zhou sneered, disdain flashing across his face. The Spirit Transfer Pagoda has grand ambitions, but they severely underestimate us. They won't pry into the Chamber's core secrets so easily. Chapter 174. Learning. Lanjia bowed respectfully. What Master said is absolutely correct. Grandmaster Huo Wuji has already strengthened the Jisho Chamber of Commerce's internal security, so no force can take advantage. Chen Zhou nodded, pleased with Huo Wuji's caution. After a moment he asked, aside from the Spirit Transfer Pagoda, have any other forces made a move? Lanjia considered briefly. No major actions. Shrek Academy seems displeased with our new education system, but they haven't done anything substantial. Most of the smaller factions are just observing, waiting to see how the cooperation with the Spirit Transfer Pagoda turns out. However, I heard that Shrek Academy, under conditions Grandmaster Huo Wuji couldn't refuse, proposed a competition, asking the Donghai region to send a representative team to spar with one chosen by Shrek Academy. Minister Long even questioned Grandmaster Huo Wuji about it and chastised General Shui. Chen Zhou let out a rare chuckle, then frowned. Shrek Academy really acts like an academy, huh? Always pushing for competitions. Do they have no sense? His tone carried sarcasm. He thought a top academy should be more strategic than resorting to risky public contests. Send word. You and Huo Wuji come see me tomorrow. Lanjia bowed and withdrew to relay the order. Chen Zhou carried Xuanli back into the room. The chamber was unchanged, simple, neat, as if time had paused there. He placed Xuanli on the bed, and with a wave of his hand, thick tomes cascaded to the floor until they formed a pile as tall as a person. He faced the little star god and smiled gently. Your task for the next few days is to study, memorize, learn, and put this knowledge into practice. Xuanli blinked at the mountain of books. She didn't yet understand what they contained, but she felt the expectation and trust in Chen Zhou's eyes. She reached out and touched the pages, as if sensing the knowledge and power within. "Ah," she uttered, bright and curious. Though newly born, as a star god, her capacity to learn far exceeded ordinary beings. Chen Zhou expected she would master much of this quickly. These books contain basic theory, practical techniques, and some advanced alchemical formulas, he explained softly. Study them carefully, understand the principles, and then try to apply them in practice. His voice was gentle but firm. Alchemy required patience and meticulousness. It could not be rushed. Xuanli nodded. She could not yet comprehend his words fully, but she felt his expectation. Chen Zhou opened the first book and began. Alchemy is about transforming energy and transmuting matter. You must sense the connections between all things, grasp how energy flows, and then, through equivalent exchange, transform one substance into another. That is the foundation of alchemy and the key to becoming a powerful alchemist. Xuanli stared intently at the pages. The characters were unfamiliar, but something instinctive in her mind began to piece meaning together. Alchemy reached back to the primordial. Its simplest forms were also its most complete. As one who was closely connected to heaven and earth, she seemed to possess an innate comprehension. Her finger traced the paper as if feeling an alchemical current. Chen Zhou watched with satisfaction. Her talent already surpassed that of ordinary disciples, and perhaps even his own when he first began. Alchemy is not just technique, he went on. It is an understanding of the world. You must feel the essence of things and perceive their relationships. Only then can you truly grasp alchemy. Xuanli met his eyes with a look of quiet determination. "Ah," she replied, tapping the page. To Chen Zhou's surprise, the paper shimmered as though steeped in ages of refinement. Tendrils of energy unfurled from the pages and spread rapidly, attempting to fill the room. Chen Zhou blinked, quickly regaining his composure, and gently patted her head. Xuanli, alchemical power must be used with caution, especially when you haven't fully mastered it. Understanding dawned in her expression. With a flick of her finger, the tendrils smoothly withdrew into the book as if they had never emerged. Chen Zhou silently marveled. She not only understood the principles quickly, but was already able to apply them instinctively. Such talent was rare. "Your talent is extraordinary," he said, "but alchemy isn't limitless. Every use consumes your mental force and energy. You must learn to completely convert your cultivation into alchemic energy, enough to transmute and refine myriad things." Chen Zhou contrasted their natures. His current body was a reincarnated one and needed time to adapt to this world's laws. He had to inscribe alchemical sigils onto his spirit to convert cultivation into alchemic energy. Xuanli, however, as a star god, was born with an innate ability to manipulate laws. Her entire being was exquisitely tuned in a way his was not. Chapter 175, Extraordinary Talent. Chen Zhou gathered his mental force, condensed the heaven and earth refining meditation method into a mote of light, and gently pressed it to the spot between Xuanli's brows. The place shimmered faintly, as if an invisible beam had pierced her forehead and flowed quickly into her consciousness. Her eyes drifted closed. She seemed to be receiving and integrating the newly infused knowledge and power. Chen Zhou watched quietly, his heart tightening with anticipation. A moment later, Xuanli opened her eyes. They sparkled with a new brightness. A childlike smile played on her lips. "Ah Wu," she murmured. Her voice was still childish, but Chen Zhou could hear confidence and contentment beneath it. She had grasped the essence of the heaven and earth refining meditation method and was already finding ways to fold it into her own alchemical instincts. Chen Zhou smiled and nodded, pleased. Even accounting for her extraordinary potential, her rapid absorption surprised him. Xuanli wriggled and nuzzled into his arms, a trace of fatigue softening her small face. Chen Zhou lifted her gently, feeling the warm, supple weight of her body. Though Xuanli was a star god with immense latent power, the spiritual essence that birthed her soul had been fragmented and worn. Without the life-giving essence of the original energy Amethyst and the War King Token, she might never have been born so whole. Despite her promise, that soul fragility still made her seem delicate. "Rest for a while if you're tired," Chen Zhou said softly, voice threaded with fondness. He laid her on the bed and tucked the quilt around her. Xuanli's breathing evened. A peaceful smile lingered on her face as she drifted off, her small hands clutching at Chen Zhou's robe, as if afraid he might leave. He sat by the bed, watching her sleep. A warm, protective sense of responsibility swelled in him. Xuanli's existence was not only his proudest work in alchemy, it marked the beginning of his reclaiming the great power of heaven and earth refinement. He didn't leave or sleep. Instead, he took out a blank book and with a soft tap of his finger, began filling it with writing. Xuanli needed instruction, and the East Sea region's new curriculum required updating. He would start there. Morning came. Sunlight spilled through the window and washed over the room. Chen Zhou opened his eyes. The book in his hand was already filled with dense notes. He closed it gently and glanced at Xuanli, still asleep, her breath steady, a look of utter safety on her face. He pried her small fingers away from his robe as carefully as if trying not to wake her, then opened the window to let in fresh air tinged with a salty sea breeze. In the distance, East Sea City was stirring to life. "My lord, Grandmaster Huo Wuji and Lan Jia are waiting outside," a respectful voice announced from beyond the door. Chen Zhou nodded and left Xuanli undisturbed. He closed the door softly and went to the reception room. Huo Wuji and Lan Jia were already there. They rose and bowed as he entered. "My lord." Chen Zhou waved them to sit and took the main seat, studying them for a moment before speaking. "What are your thoughts on the Shrek Academy matter?" Huo Wuji considered briefly. "My lord, Shrek Academy's move is clearly meant to suppress our new education. They want to prove the superiority of traditional schooling through competition and weaken our influence in the East Sea. But I believe this can be turned into an opportunity." "Go on," Chen Zhou prompted. "Shrek Academy has a long history, but their system has ossified. They're rigid and resistant to innovation. Our Jisho Chamber of Commerce's new education stresses practice and invention. producing students who pair solid theory with excellence across various domains. Instead of treating this as only a confrontation, we should use the attention Shrek Academy brings to host a major exchange event under our new system. Invite academies from across the East Sea to send students who thrive under our methods. Put it on a grand public broadcast and let the whole continent and perhaps the entire world see our strengths. Lanja snorted at that and gave a small, knowing twitch of the mouth. Huowuji ignored him. As a leader who had been formed from recorded genes and memories drawn from the War King Token, Huowuji retained much of his original peak recollection. One of his small pastimes was needling the beast race. He liked to point out that brute force alone could not drive societal progress. Now that my lord has emerged from seclusion, Shrek Academy is at a disadvantage in every way, Huowuji continued. Once their delegation arrives, the world will be able to see how unconventional and forward-looking the East Sea and the Jisho Chamber are. We'll showcase the achievements of the new education. He had contingencies ready. If Shrek Academy were to beat them decisively, the exchange could still cause short-term damage to their reputation, but nothing stayed fixed forever. Huowuji had weighed the trade-offs and favored long-term gains. So you propose we use this exchange to run a large-scale reverse publicity campaign, demonstrate the fruits of the new education to seize public opinion? Chen Zhou asked, tapping his fingers on the table. He was considering the strategic implications. If Huoji was right, this could catalyze sweeping reform. Refusing to act might mean being left behind. Huowuji's eyes gleamed. Exactly. Since Shrek Academy has come to us, we should not miss the chance. The outcome of each contest matters less than the exposure and the demonstration of our system. We must make sure the event is flawless. Chen Zhou nodded slowly, a sharp light passing through his gaze. Good. Huowuji, prepare it. We will host the exchange, and we will make it undeniable. Huowuji bowed. My lord, rest assured, I've already finalized arrangements with Minister Long. Before Shrek Academy's delegation arrives, we'll launch our new education exchange and learning activities. Let the so-called information blockade collapse on its own. Chen Zhou's mind was already moving ahead, plotting how to turn scrutiny into an unstoppable tide for the reforms he envisioned. Chapter 176. 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Chen Zhou gave a slight nod in approval of Huowuji's arrangements. He paused to consider, then said, since Shrek Academy had the nerve to propose a contest, they must be ready for the consequences. We can't take them lightly. Lanja, you are to secretly investigate the Shrek Academy team, especially their core members. Find out their strengths and weaknesses. Lanja rose immediately and answered respectfully, Yes, master, I'll make the arrangements at once. Chen Zhou waved him off, then turned his gaze back to Huowuji, his tone carrying a deeper edge. Huowuji, what is the current financial situation of the Jisho Chamber of Commerce? Huowuji looked momentarily surprised, then replied, Master, our finances are excellent. Ever since we introduced the potion that enhances innate spirit power, we've been auctioning shares to major cities weekly. That has massively increased the Chamber's revenue. With expanded cooperation with the East Sea Legion, we've taken over repairs, maintenance, and weapons upgrades for mechs, spirit tools, warships, and combat aircraft. We've already dominated the East Sea's portable spirit tool market. Making a fortune every day hardly describes how prosperous the Jisho Chamber has become. The most important factor, though, is the allegiance of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Merchant Guild. Chen Zhou raised an eyebrow. The allegiance of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School? He hadn't forgotten that, before the Jisho Chamber of Commerce was formed, their first real profit had come from dealings with the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Hearing the name again brought back memories as vivid as yesterday. Huowuji continued, Since the chamber rose, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School has been paying close attention to our intelligence and operations. Apart from a few great powers, they probably understand the Jisho Chamber better than most. Their interest goes back 20,000 years, to Ning Rongrong. She was once the pride of their school, and after becoming a god, the school was even renamed the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Being elevated to godhood was glorious, but the school didn't receive the favor they expected from their ancestor. The 9-treasure glazed tile school became more of a memorial than an active power. Because gods weren't supposed to intervene in the mortal realm, they accepted it and kept developing the school under that fading divine prestige. 10,000 years ago, everything changed. Gods could interfere after all, but their ancestor ignored them. Their young sect master was forced to change, humiliated and treated like a plaything. The 9-treasure glazed tile school severed that shameful past, renamed itself the 7-treasure glazed tile school, and tried to cut ties with its history. But their former glory was gone, and the sect steadily declined into a second-rate force. It wasn't until the Jisho chamber rose that they saw new hope. They recognized the potential of our chamber and of that potion to boost innate spirit power. Hoping to revive their sect, they voluntarily pledged allegiance to the Jisho chamber and became an important partner. Huowuji added, "Master, although their strength isn't what it once was, the 7-treasure glazed tile school still has valuable business experience and connections. Their alliance has brought us resources and helped us open markets in other regions. The chamber's business now spans the entire continent and has begun to extend overseas." Chen Zhou's eyes showed a flicker of satisfaction. The school's allegiance had indeed helped the chamber greatly. What's their actual attitude? Are they genuinely loyal? Huowuji smiled faintly. "Master, they are completely reliant on us now. They know only by riding on the Jisho chamber's coattails can they hope to reclaim past glory. As for sincerity, loyalty is a luxury merchants don't often afford. They're a tool for accumulating wealth. So long as they benefit us and don't harm the chamber, we can work with them." His voice carried a cool edge. He harbored no illusions about sentimental loyalty. Chen Zhou approved with a slight nod. He didn't care whether the 7-treasure glazed tile school was sincere, only that they brought profit and posed no threat. "In that case, manage matters with the 7-treasure glazed tile school," Chen Zhou said. "But keep close watch on them. Make sure they don't try anything behind our backs." Huowuji bowed. "Yes, Master. I will monitor their every move and ensure they remain harmless to the chamber." Chen Zhou then steered the conversation back to the upcoming exchange with Shrek Academy. "Huowuji, any detailed plans for the exchange?" Huowuji thought for a moment. "Master, I've already discussed it with Department Head Long. We plan to hold a grand exhibition of the new educational achievements at East Sea Academy and invite representatives from major powers to attend. We'll showcase the results of our new education system and arrange an exhibition match with Shrek Academy so everyone can see the superiority of our approach firsthand." Chen Zhou frowned faintly. "Will Shrek Academy agree to that arrangement?" Huowuji's smile grew confident. "Master, they were the ones who challenged us. They have to accept proper procedures. Right now, they're the challengers." Chen Zhou nodded. Huowuji had proven his leadership. He had led the Thunder Tribe, a comparatively weak branch among the Mech tribe, for centuries with reliable competence. "Very well, leave the rest to you." Since Chen Zhou had delegated authority, he would only guide the broad strokes. "Reserve one spot for me in the competition, and secure another slot as well. The remaining selections can be coordinated between you and Long Hengsu." "Yes, Master," Huowuji replied with respect, then departed to arrange the details. Chen Zhou remained in the reception room, eyes distant and thoughtful. His fingers tapped a slow rhythm on the table. After a moment, he stood and walked to the window, looking out over East Sea City. The city was still bustling, people in motion, traffic flowing. The prosperity visible in every street owed much to the momentum created by the Jisho Chamber of Commerce. And that prosperity, ultimately, would feed back to nourish him. Chapter 177, Lan Muzi's Broken Dao Heart, East Sea City, the Shrek Academy team's hotel. Night had fallen, and the city's bright lights were revealed beneath the floor-to-ceiling windows. Shrek Academy finally understood why East Sea Academy boasted about bringing formal education to every corner. The city's prosperity and energy surpassed their expectations. Neon lights flickered along the streets, shop fronts dazzled, and an endless stream of pedestrians flowed past, as if the whole city came alive after dark. East Sea's nights were filled with noise and motion, not silence. The team stood on the high floor, looking out at the scene with expressions that mixed shock and confusion. Even coming from one of the continent's top academies, the view felt unexpectedly foreign. Eastsea City's prosperity equaled, if not rivaled, Shrek City. And that was something Shrek Academy, with its 10,000-year history, had always taken pride in. A wave of complicated emotions swept through the group. They had long heard of Eastsea's wealth, but seeing ordinary people on the street using spirit tools so casually still stunned them. How is this possible? Ying Xiue murmured, watching pedestrians handle spirit tools with practiced ease. Disbelief colored her voice. Spirit tools are supposed to be for spirit masters. How can ordinary people control them so skillfully? Bo Xingyu frowned, clearly puzzled. Lan Muzi, who had returned east with the team, stood by the window, his expression thoughtful. After a long pause, he said, "Maybe this is what East Sea Academy's formal education really means. They aren't just cultivating spirit masters, they're educating ordinary people to wield knowledge and tools in ways that rival spirit masters." "You mean the emergence of portable spirit tools," Ying Xue said, "and the Jishou Chamber of Commerce is behind it." Lan Muzi nodded slowly. Efficient energy conversion, massively reduced costs. It makes spirit tools accessible to the public. When ordinary people can use spirit tools, they can contribute to innovation and development. That shifts the social balance. Even though Lan Muzi had almost been killed by purple armor in the past, he couldn't help but admire the depth behind the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's achievements. The technology felt mature, the energy breakthroughs far beyond casual invention. It seemed likely this Chamber of Commerce had a truly deep foundation. In truth, Lan Muzi's instincts weren't entirely wrong. Even without Chen Zhou's past life knowledge, the war technology from the machine beast world contained in the War King Token placed Douluo continent far behind. Ying Xiue shook her head and spoke with conviction. Maybe the Jishou Chamber of Commerce is uniquely gifted at spirit tool research, but when it comes to training spirit masters, Shrek Academy is still number one. Her words carried pride and certainty. Shrek Academy was not only a school, but a sacred place for spirit masters, with a lineage stretching back tens of thousands of years. Countless legendary spirit masters had been nurtured there. In terms of spirit cultivation and mastering spirit abilities, Shrek Academy had no equal. Still, the scene in Eastsea left her unsettled. The city's vitality and the sight of ordinary people using spirit tools suggested Eastsea Academy might be following a very different path. "Perhaps we need to rethink Eastsea Academy," Lan Muzi said quietly, his gaze still on the bustling streets below. "Rethink?" Bo Xingyu looked confused. "No matter what Eastsea does, they can't surpass our Shrek Academy in developing spirit masters, right?" Lan Muzi shook his head. "Not necessarily surpass us in training spirit masters. Their direction is different. The prosperity you see isn't just because of spirit masters' presence. It's because ordinary people, armed with spirit tools, can take part in building and developing the city. That model could be the future." Ying Xue's brows knitted as she considered his words. Though confident in Shrek Academy's strengths, she had to admit the sight before them was disquieting. If spirit tools become widespread among the populace, the whole landscape of Douluo continent might change. If spirit tools become common to everyone, won't the status of spirit masters be threatened? She asked quietly. Spirit masters had always been a tiny portion of the population. Even with a modest rate of innovation among the general populace, the absolute number of qualified innovators could be vast. With structured education and the backing of institutions like the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, ordinary people could learn the knowledge and techniques required to develop spirit tools without relying on spirit masters. Lan Muzi's voice was heavy. Exactly. The traditional advantages of spirit masters are being weakened. The popularization of spirit tools doesn't just replicate their powers, it changes how society operates. Ordinary people can handle powerful forces now. That's a social transformation, not merely a technical one. Bo Xingyu's frown deepened. He had always regarded spirit masters as the continent's nobility. Their spirit rings, and spirit abilities were beyond the reach of ordinary people. But spirit tools can't replace spirit ability, he protested. Our spirit power and spirit rings are unique. Even if ordinary people use spirit tools, they still can't compare to us. Lan Muzi turned and looked at everyone in the room, his expression grave. You're right. Spirit Masters still have unique strengths, but the popularization of spirit tools isn't only about replacing that power, it's about redistributing capability across society. East Sea's prosperity stems from that redistribution, from allowing the many to participate, not only the few. That may be the true trend of the future. The words hung in the air as the city lights twinkled below, and the members of the Shrek Academy team felt the first chill of a changing world. Chapter 178, Long Yewei, Yali. Unlike the newly admitted students, Ying Xiwei and Bo Xingyu were already fourth years. Their future entry into the inner court was nearly certain, which was why the Shrek team had chosen them. Shrek Academy could not afford to lose. This was the first and most important competition, not merely the Academy's honor at stake, but the future standing of Shrek's education on this continent. A loss would not eliminate them, but it would deal a devastating blow to their influence and prestige. All right, children. An aged voice cut through the room. Seated in a single chair in the hall, the elderly woman spoke with calm authority. Long Yewei, level 99 attack system limit. Douluo, light and dark Douluo, and vice pavilion master of the Sea God Pavilion, favored students who could think for themselves. Seeing Lan Muzi's nearly confused state, she interrupted the discussion. She rose slowly, letting her gaze sweep over everyone in the room. Her tone was both authoritative and warm. Children, your thoughts are valuable, but don't let the present situation blind you. Shrek Academy has stood tall for tens of thousands of years, not only because of our advantage in Spirit Master cultivation, but because we uphold a spirit to constantly surpass ourselves and pursue excellence. Her voice, though aged, carried power, as if it could pierce hearts and strike at the soul. She let her eyes rest on each student a moment, finally fixing on Lan Muzi. Lan Muzi, your thinking is deep, but remember, Shrek Academy exists not only to cultivate spirit masters, but to protect the peace and order of this continent. The popularization of spirit tools will bring change, yes, but it will not weaken the status of spirit masters. On the contrary, it presents a new challenge and an opportunity Shrek must face. Lan Muzi's expression brightened with a flash of realization. He inclined his head respectfully. Vice Pavilion Master, I understand. Long Yewei nodded with satisfaction. As his mentor, she knew the scene that had unfolded the day he fled back to Shrek City had shaken him in ways the Sea God Pavilion had not expected. Kaiyuer and Lan Muzi had been nearly broken by the purple armor from the Jisho Chamber of Commerce. Lan Muzi, whose spirit power had just advanced to titled Douluo, had suffered a shattered spirit bone and a near regression from level 91. Although the Sea God Pavilion's efforts had healed most of his injuries, his spirit had not fully recovered. That battle's shadow lingered, leaving him wary of the Jisho Chamber of Commerce's strength. A trace of sorrow passed through Long Yewei's eyes. She knew that Lan Muzi, though outwardly gentle and refined, had an inner arrogance and had never endured such a crushing defeat. That loss had wounded him physically and dealt a harsh blow to his confidence. Lan Muzi, she said gently but firmly, failure itself is not terrible. What is terrible is letting failure crush your will. The heroes in Shrek's history faced countless setbacks, she continued. Each time they learned and became stronger. As members of Shrek, you must carry that same belief. Lan Muzi drew a deep breath. Light returned to his eyes. He nodded solemnly. I understand, teacher. All right, Elder Long, let the children rest for now. Tomorrow we have a formal meeting with the Jisho Chamber of Commerce. The door to a side room opened, and a graceful woman stepped out. Clean and elegant, yet full of vitality, dark green hair falling behind her, she moved with a slender poise and wore a gentle smile. Ya Li, the level 98 healing system Super Douluo, Saint Spirit Douluo, and also Vice Pavilion Master of the Sea God Pavilion, joined Long Yewei, their combined presence a clear statement of Shrek Academy's focus and resolve. This trip to East Sea City was not only for the competition, but for deep exchanges and cooperation with the Jisho Chamber of Commerce. Though Shrek Academy had an ancient, rich heritage, facing a rising power like the Jisho Chamber required humility and seriousness. Nair, time for bed. Yali waved to the silver-haired girl standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at the lights below. Nair was the disciple of Yunming and Yali's adopted daughter, an exceptionally talented girl who, though young, had already shown incredible potential. Her spirit was the Silver Dragon Spear, a rare and mighty spirit, hailed as one of Shrek's future hopes. Nair turned slowly at Yali's call. Her silver hair shimmered softly in the light. Her eyes still held bewildered wonder at East Sea City. "Teacher Yali, this city, it's so different," she murmured. Yali smiled and moved to her side, gently stroking Nair's hair. "Tomorrow you'll see even more incredible things. But for now, rest." Nair nodded. Her curiosity and confusion remained, but she knew staying rested was essential for the challenges ahead. The next morning, sunlight pierced the cliff red across East Sea City. The Shrek delegation readied themselves, faces full of fighting spirit and anticipation. Long Yewei and Yali walked at the front. Their steady, powerful auras bolstered everyone's confidence. By prior arrangement, the delegation would first tour and exchange with the Jisho Chamber of Commerce and engage in combat training with the representative team from the East Sea region. The Chamber's headquarters stood in the heart of East Sea City, a magnificent structure that blended modern technology with classical aesthetics, radiating a unique charm. Its main gate yawned open, welcoming Shrek. The tour was held on the third floor, a vast exhibition hall displaying spirit tool models and explanations, progressing from simple to complex. 48 stone pillars supported a 5-meter-high platform under which the exhibition areas for 24 academies from across the East Sea were arrayed. The rise of new education wasn't merely a challenge to Shrek's old model. It aimed to harness the talent of the entire Douluo Star population so multiple fields could flourish. Only by raising general literacy and advancing basic sciences could society progress, not by focusing solely on spirit power cultivation. A level 99 limit Douluo, close to a godlike level, might be able to briefly traverse space. But what good is such personal strength if it cannot propel the development of the world? Personal power that doesn't benefit the world is not a true contribution to progress. Chapter 179, A True Grandmaster. "Welcome, the Shrek Academy delegation to the Jisho Chamber of Commerce." A voice rang out from the front. Lanjia, dressed in a sky-blue suit, stepped forward to greet the Shrek Academy delegation. His manner was polite but cool. Long Yewei's expression hardened the moment she heard him. Seeing the tension, Yeli moved up with a warm smile. "Thank you, Jisho Chamber of Commerce, for your reception. Shrek Academy is here for open exchange and to learn from you." Yali's calm, confident tone eased the awkwardness. Her gaze swept the exhibition hall. A flicker of admiration crossed her face. Though she wasn't unfamiliar with the Jisho Chamber of Commerce, seeing such a large, elaborate display of spirit tools still impressed her. Lanjia returned a faint smile. His attitude wasn't especially warm, but he showed no hostility either. He stepped aside and made a welcoming gesture. "Please follow me." Our Jisho Chamber of Commerce's exhibition hall is divided into several zones. Each zone showcases new spirit tool technologies developed over the past 6 months by different academies across the East Sea region. Lanjia's voice was steady and assured, as if he were describing something ordinary, but his words sent a ripple through the Shrek Academy students. New spirit tool technology in only 6 months? Even those who didn't know much about spirit tools were familiar with their everyday applications. The idea that so many new innovations could appear so quickly amazed them. They followed Lanjia into the exhibition hall. The layout was exquisite. Each display area had detailed information boards and demonstration models, and students were on hand to explain and operate the exhibits. The hall hummed with technological vitality, as if every display was a testament to the rapid progress of spirit tool development in the East Sea. Lanjia guided them from zone to zone. In the agricultural domain, Lingqiu Academy, from the inland regions, has just launched a new spirit tool called the Spirit Plant Cultivator. It simulates optimal growth environments by precisely regulating spirit power, significantly improving crop yield and quality. Through continuous experiments and refinements, Lingqiu students have reduced the cost to a level ordinary farmers can afford. It's already in use at several agricultural bases in the region, with striking results. Pride colored his words, as if introducing his own masterpiece. The Shrek students felt a mix of surprise and unease. Spirit tools for agriculture? They had expected combat or personal assistance applications, not farming. Ying Shiwei murmured under her breath, "How is that possible? Aren't spirit tools meant for combat or to aid spirit masters in cultivation and daily life? How could they be used for farming?" Lanjia heard her and smiled, answering lightly, "That's exactly the point. We aren't shackled by outdated thinking. The wheels of history must move forward. As a leading power on Douluo Star, the Jishou Chamber of Commerce feels both confident and responsible for promoting progress. Why sit on a self-written record of past glories, daydreaming like frogs in a well and clinging to old ways?" he continued, his words sharp. His remark was a clear jab at Shrek Academy. The Shrek delegation bristled. Long Yewei's face went ice-cold, fingers tensing as if ready to lash out. But Lan Jiao went on. Smelting of minerals and metals, civil-use external mechs for transport, efficient spirit tools for energy storage and recovery. Nearly half the research on display here came from ideas contributed by non-spirit master students. In fact, many learned scholars in history, those who lacked strong spirit power, conceived countless directions for soul guidance technology. Yet because of traditional benchmarks, those without spirit power were sidelined and looked down upon by spirit masters. In our eyes at the Jishou Chamber of Commerce, those people deserve the title of Grandmaster. To be weak yet self-aware, to strive and empower ordinary people, that is our goal. His voice resonated through the hall. It was infectious rhetoric that struck at a sore spot for the Shrek students. Spirit masters had always held themselves in high regard. Being reminded that ordinary people could achieve so much in technology wounded their pride. Bo Xingyu stepped forward, anger flaring. Can those achievements replace the power of a spirit master? We don't just rely on spirit tools. We have a soul guidance department, and even Spirit Ice Douluo, the creator of the Spirit Ascension platform and the Soul Spirit, came from Shrek Academy. Bo Xingyu, calm down, Long Yewei said softly, trying to rein him in. Lan Jia, however, only smiled, clearly enjoying the response. He cocked his head with the air of someone curious. "Oh? Is that so? Then tell me, what role did Shrek Academy actually play in Spirit Ice Douluo's rise? You must have supported him greatly, right? You must have recognized his potential early and cultivated him." Many of the Shrek students didn't pore over dusty histories and biographies, but those who had, Lan Muzi, Long Yeyue, Ya Li, and a few others, knew fragments of the past. Spirit Ice Douluo Yuhao had not been highly esteemed by Shrek Academy at first. Faced with Lan Jia's questions and the expectant looks of others as if waiting for confirmation, they fell silent. They all knew what Lan Jia said wasn't baseless. Shrek Academy's assistance to Huo Yuhao in his early days had been limited, perhaps even negligible. That truth made them uncomfortable and ashamed. They fell quiet, a weight of embarrassment settling over them. Chapter 180, a concept that reverses traditional notions. Precisely. An aged voice echoed through the exhibition hall as Long Yewei stepped forward from the group, her gaze steady and deep. Huo Yuhao's achievements are the fruit of his own effort and perseverance. His time with Shrek Academy was only a starting point. Admittedly, our academy did not provide him with adequate support, but we have gained many important lessons from him. Her tone was calm, but carried weight, as if transmitting an invisible force that resonated with everyone present. We do not deny the Jishou Chamber of Commerce's strength in soul guidance technology, nor do we fear the development of new methods. Shrek Academy will accept the challenge, learn from others' strengths, continually surpass ourselves, and strive for excellence. We will not allow ourselves to be left behind by the times. We will uphold the dignity and value of spirit masters and continue to contribute to the peace and prosperity of the Douluo continent. Long Yewei's words were full of conviction, stirring pride and determination among the Shrek Academy students who had accompanied her. Lan Jia's polite smile faded and was replaced by a faint curl of ridicule. Such words, he thought, came only from the thick-skinned tradition of Shrek Academy. "Well said. Keep repeating that," he said coolly, then turned and continued the tour. Every corner of the exhibition hall buzzed with innovation and vitality, showcasing breakthroughs in spirit tool technology from academies across the East Sea region. These devices weren't solely the domain of spirit masters. they were also the crystallization of ordinary people's ingenuity. In the agricultural pavilion, Lingshu Academy's spiritual plant cultivator widened the Shrek students' horizons. The device could precisely regulate a plant's growth environment, increasing both yield and quality. The technology promised solutions to food shortages in the East Sea region and offered new directions for agricultural development across the continent. Next, they moved to the mineral smelting area, where a high-efficiency smelting furnace stood on display, an apparatus that markedly improved ore refining efficiency while cutting energy consumption. An East Sea Academy student demonstrated its operation with fluid, confident motions, as if performing with a well-practiced craft. This furnace was designed by a first-year student we recruited to East Sea Academy, Lan Jia said with a trace of pride. He has no spirit power, but he's extremely gifted in mechanical design and energy efficiency calculations. The Shrek students felt a jolt of mixed emotions. Coming from the continent's top academy, they still found the scene alien. It was hard to accept that ordinary people could design and run such sophisticated spirit tools. Ying Shiwei murmured, How is that possible? Shrek Academy taught that every spirit master should master a secondary profession, mecha designer, blacksmith, pilot, and Ying Shiwei had chosen blacksmithing. Seeing deep silver ore steadily purified by a machine until it reached 100 refined levels struck a blow to her core. If spirit tools and this new soul guidance technology, cold, mechanical systems, could replace skills that took years or decades to hone, then Ying Shiwei felt not only shock and unease, but a quiet, growing fear. The technological vision East Sea Academy promoted threatened to alter the role of spirit masters across the Douluo continent. Reporters who had been invited by Shrek Academy to cover the exchange had long since drifted off, enthralled by the exhibits. Lan Jia called, Next, please move to the civilian external transport mecha area. The next display stunned everyone. A fleet of external mechas filled the section, large and small, some like high-altitude engineering rigs, others like compact transport units, and a few brightly colored models even aimed at children. They moved with agility and precision, each clearly driven by the Jisho Chamber of Commerce's newest intelligent soul guidance technology. Are these made by those students too? Someone from Shrek Academy asked, eyes wide. Lan Jia shook his head. These are products the Jisho Chamber of Commerce plans to promote heavily. He continued, explaining the chamber's new theory. Under the soul guidance technology recently released by the Supreme Research Group, so-called manned mechas are a misguided approach. Spirit tools are meant to see the big picture from the small. Leaving space inside a mecha for a human is wasteful. The external mechas our chamber developed are meant to overturn that misconception. He pointed to a compact external mecha on the stand. This unit is controlled via a remote spirit tool. With a mental force amplification device, you can operate it remotely, transporting materials, performing constructions, without a spirit master physically in the machine. It improves efficiency, cuts labor costs, and lowers the risk of injury. The Shrek delegation exchanged troubled looks. Faced with such a comprehensive technological system, they realized the Jisho Chamber's rise could transform the Douluo continent. Technology, it seemed, was being used as power to erode traditional notions of spirit masters' indispensability, especially on a continent where spirit masters are rare and ordinary people numerous. Lan Jia's words peeled back layers of pride, revealing that an era of change was indeed upon them. This is not merely a tool, Long Yeyue said slowly, her gaze lingering on the external mecha. This is a concept that reverses traditional notions. Even as a limit Douluo with a 99th level attack system, Long Yeyue had to admit she had not seen convenience and intelligence like this. The new external mechas were something entirely different, efficient, intelligent, and profoundly challenging to established ways of thinking.